Chapter 11:21, Pill and Formation I. Though the night was deep and heavy, the purple smoke-blessed land was bathed in brilliant light. Strands of purple chi coiled and rose like silken threads, filling the air with ethereal immortality. It surged and receded like the tides, while rows of peaks emerged one after another from the thick purple clouds. Pillars of Dharma light shot straight into the heavens, illuminating the land with radiant brilliance. At the very center, exquisitely beautiful pavilions and towers floated above the purple chi. A Taoist master in a white robe traced with golden patterns glided forward on a beam of light, followed by a younger man with the bearing of a refined scholar. The purple chi parted around them, revealing a long and crystalline staircase of purple jade. Disciples of the Purple Smoke Gate, even those who did not recognize the Taoist master, bowed low as he passed and did not rise until he had gone far ahead. The sight made Li Ziming nod inwardly, thinking, the Purple Smoke Gate truly lives up to its ancient heritage. Its discipline and propriety are most rigorous. This visit was not only about the matter concerning Profound Peak Gate. There were many areas where the two sides needed to speak and grow acquainted with. Li Ziming had never intended to come alone. Most of his direct descendants were either in seclusion or recovering from injuries, while the few remaining had major responsibilities to oversee. After much deliberation, he decided to bring Qi Juyan along. Those guest cultivators would only embarrass us if they were brought along. Ding Weizeng may be competent, but he's injured and, more importantly, lacks tact and has never seen the greater world. This direct heir of Changzhu, Qi Juyan, is the most suitable. Just then, a female cultivator riding on a cloud streaked toward them. Her feathered robe was a pale yellow, and the silk ribbons at her waist fluttered elegantly in a cascade of colors. "Greetings, Taoist Master Zheajing." The female cultivator saluted, and the Taoist master in the white and gold robe responded with polite courtesy, "Is Taoist Master Tinglin present?" Li Ziming had exchanged letters with the Purple Smoke Gate days earlier and confirmed that Taoist Master Tinglin had indeed returned before making this visit. The question was merely a formality, and the yellow-robed cultivator replied, "Our Taoist master returned to the blessed land half a year ago. She had planned to leave on the 22nd day, but after reading your letter, she decided to remain for a few more days and sent this junior to await your arrival." She led the way forward as the purple mist billowed and spread. Li Ziming turned his head slightly and spoke softly, "This is the Purple Smoke Immortal Gate of the Green Pine Supreme Yang Dao lineage." He spoke these words to Qi Juyan, who followed behind. The young man stood upright, gazing in slight amazement at the purple chi flowing through the mountains. He answered respectfully and felt much more at ease inside. Qi Juyan was a stranger to the inland realm, but even after only a year or so in seclusion, he had learned at least a little about the 3 sects and 7 gates. That Li Ziming, a Purple Mansion realm cultivator, took the time to explain this showed he regarded Qi Juyan as his own junior. Were he just an ordinary Foundation establishment realm subordinate, he would never have been given such attention. The three continued deeper inside and descended into a palace floating atop the purple chi. The purple chi was even denser here, as spiritual energy surged in abundance. Beneath their feet, a peculiar current of spiritual chi seemed to flow along the steps and drift away like smoke. Though the Purple Smoke Gate was only one of the 7 gates, its heritage was profound. Its gate grounds, famed as a blessed land, were magnificently splendid. Changzhu Island was considered a fine place, yet it was far inferior to the Purple Smoke blessed land. Qi Juyan could not help but gaze in reverence. The Purple Essence Dao lineage was exceedingly rare in the outer seas. Devil cultivators could still occasionally be found there, but a righteous lineage suffused with such celestial grace had never appeared. As Qi Juyan's gaze swept over the drifting purple chi, he found it ever more profound and wondrous. The yellow-robed cultivator led them to the summit, but no palace awaited them there, only a smooth, translucent platform of purple jade. The purple chi had taken on a faint golden hue as it weaved and flowed beneath their feet. Then a soft laugh rang out, "Greetings, Taoist friend Zheajing." Li Ziming looked and saw a woman standing on the platform. Unlike the usual purple-robed attire of Purple Smoke Gate members, she wore an autumn-yellow silk gown embroidered with bright and striking butterfly patterns. Her features were delicate, her brows slender, and a touch of cyan at the corner. Auras of her eyes accentuated her beauty. "This Taoist Master Tinglin, it seems she has a taste for adornment." Only Li Ziming and Tinglin regarded one another directly. Neither the Purple Smoke Gate cultivators nor Qi Juyan dared look straight at a Purple Mansion realm cultivator. Uncertain of Taoist Master Tinglin's thoughts, Li Ziming simply smiled and replied, You are too courteous, Taoist friend. I had heard your Tao title was most elegant. Now that I see your true self, you are indeed a fairy. Taoist Master Tinglin let out a small laugh, nodded in thanks, and replied, I am originally a cultivator from the Qi region in the northern lands. Our attire differs somewhat from that of Jiangnan. I hope Taoist friend does not mind. Li Ziming suddenly understood, and clarity dawned in his heart. A cultivator from Qi region. Then this Taoist Master Tinglin is likely not of the Can family. The Qi region is Gao family territory. Surely, she isn't of the Gao family herself. While Li Ziming was still speculating, Taoist Master Tinglin spoke gently. My surname is Yi. I was once a rogue formation master from Bo Lai Prefecture. It was under the guidance of my teacher, Taoist Master Zaipai, that I cultivated divine abilities here in the blessed land. Li Ziming nodded, and Taoist Master Tinglin continued, I have been traveling constantly these past years and have seldom been within the gate. I only saw your letter after returning, and I must apologize for keeping Taoist friend Zheijing waiting. Li Ziming did not believe a single word. When Changxi was still alive, he visited Purple Smoke Gate several times and never saw even a shadow of them. Even when we sent our people to inquire, there was no reply. Yet now that Changxi has fallen, the battle on the river has concluded, and the matter of splitting Shanji Prefecture has risen, suddenly she can be found. That a rogue cultivator like Taoist Master Tinglin had received Zaipai's personal teachings and broken through to the Purple Mansion realm showed she was no ordinary person. Li Ziming did not take offense. After all, everyone wished to avoid risk and seize the greatest benefit. He merely replied, it delays nothing. Finding the traces of our predecessor remains the foremost task. Taoist Master Tinglin only smiled and nodded without further comment. She raised her sleeve and swept it lightly across her body. A table instantly materialized on the jade platform, seamlessly part of it. Upon it rested a jade teapot, the tea inside boiling as white steam billowed from its spout. Please, the two sat down, and Tinglin asked, Zheijing, have you come to see me regarding your family's formation matters? Tinglin had offered a good opening, and Li Ziming had indeed come with that in mind, so he nodded and said, my family has only recently ascended to the rank of an immortal family, and indeed lacks a Purple Mansion realm spirit formation. Purple Smoke is a major gate of formations, and you are a great master of the art, so I have come to seek your guidance. Tinglin glanced at him and said with a smile, Taoist friend is not lacking either. In truth, Li Ziming had only just broken through to the Purple Mansion realm, and his alchemy was far from that of a true grandmaster. Tinglin herself did not have the ability to arrange a Purple Mansion realm formation on her own either. Her remark brought a hint of shared amusement to both their faces, and Li Ziming spoke solemnly, I ask for your instruction. Tinglin nodded and spoke softly, the key to a Purple Mansion realm grand formation lies in three aspects. First and foremost are the spirit items within the formation. Second is the foundation of the formation itself. And lastly, the divine abilities and mana of the formation master. The foundation refers to the spiritual energy, the earth veins, the great void, and the positional nodes within the formation. Although they are extremely costly, they are often not the true obstacle for people like us. The real difficulty lies in the fact that spirit items suitable for formations are few in number, and the formation master's divine abilities may not be sufficient to draw out and harness the full potential of those items. Li Ziming thought this over as Tinglin continued, your family will first need to secure Purple Mansion realm spirit items, then invite me to inspect them. If everything is settled, I have 1 or 2 friends who can assist. In about 3 to 5 years, the formation should be ready for use. She paused for a moment. Clearly, her thoughts had also turned to the matter of the profound peak mountain. She poured tea for Li Ziming as she said, if there is an existing Purple Mansion realm formation that can be relocated, then the situation would be quite different. I would still need to visit your lake, study the earth veins, and either fill in the lake or open the mountains in key locations. It will take some effort. RT in the short term, but the setup will proceed much faster and without excessive expense. Chapter 11:22, Pill and Formation, II. The tea Tinglin served was unexpectedly good. It was far better than what Li Ziming or Taoist Master Changxi had ever brewed. Li Ziming took a sip and sensed Tinglin's enthusiasm for the matter ran rather deep, so he asked, so it would take that long. I had hoped Taoist friend could lend a hand, but I did not expect it would require such great effort. Tinglin had been waiting for that question and replied simply, do not worry, Zheijing. I too would like you to lend your hand and refine a pill for me. Refine a pill, Li Ziming frowned and asked. Is Taoist friend unable to refine it with your own divine ability? For one in the Purple Mansion realm, a mere wave of the hand was enough to produce pills. If Tinglin was requesting his help, then the pill in question was certainly no ordinary pill. At his question, Tinglin gave a slight nod but said nothing. Instead, she turned to the yellow-robed cultivator of Purple Smoke Gate and said, "Danying, take this young friend to tour the blessed land." Kui Juyan immediately understood. Seeing Li Ziming nod, he and the yellow-robed cultivator left quickly. When the purple smoke closed in around them, Tinglin finally spoke. "When people like us with a divine ability refine pills, we are only capable of producing those for Foundation Establishment realm or Qi cultivation realm. Unlike you, we have not trained in the alchemical arts. Once Shenyang ascends into the great void, yin and yang achieve balance. But the moment we pour our full strength into alchemy, that power inevitably affects the Shenyang mansion over time, upsetting that balance. I even have to ask Taoist Master Hengxing to trade me decent essence-gathering pills. As for pills of higher grade, they are beyond my reach." She produced a jade slip, casually dissolved the sealing techniques on it, and placed it on the table with a smile. "I must trouble Taoist friend to have a look, and see whether it can be refined." Li Ziming had not expected such an unexpected opportunity, and took it up to read. Heavenly Quintessence Expelling Pill. As expected, this was a Purple Mansion realm pill, and a deeply complex one at that. It required the use of the exceedingly precious Purple Mansion realm spirit item Boundless Water Fire as its harmonizing agent. Only after refining it with a divine ability 16,200 times could it form a pill body using heavenly origin essence. When Li Ziming read this, he gritted his teeth inwardly. Well now, Purple Smoke Gate is truly wealthy and extravagant. Even though Tinglin isn't of the Can family, she's still so lavish. Both Boundless Water Fire and Heavenly Origin Essence. Even acquiring one of them would keep me grinning for 3 days straight. The primary ingredients beyond that were not recorded, only the auxiliary ones, the general method, and notes on the pill's refinement difficulty. Its effects were not described either, but as an alchemist, Li Ziming understood well enough after reading, this is a spirit pill that seizes quintessence and gathers origin, a valley water spirit pill, not exactly orthodox. He pondered for a moment before asking, "Taoist Master, does the main ingredient include spirit items such as veiled yin or radiant essence?" Of course not. When she didn't hear an immediate refusal, Tinglin sensed there might be hope. Her tone warmed considerably as she said with a smile, "I had anticipated that question. It is precisely because of the valley water ingredient, which is incompatible with Hengzhu, that Taoist friend Hengxing dared not refine this pill for me. If there were something like veiled yin involved, I wouldn't dare ask Taoist friend to attempt it either." Li Ziming now understood why she had not turned to Taoist Master Hengxing. He deliberated inwardly for a while. The difficulty of this pill is unlike anything I've seen before. Fortunately, the challenge lies in refinement. At worst, the yield will be lower and the time required longer, but it is not an insurmountable obstacle of divine ability. It is not impossible to refine. After some thought, he asked to confirm, "Does Taoist friend possess the Boundless Water Fire?" Tinglin nodded and ordered someone to bring up a large stone chest from the foot of the mountain. She opened it with a wave of her divine ability and took out a small clay vessel that was no larger than the size of a palm. Its smooth surface was etched with intricate patterns of gold and white. The vessel was placed quietly on the table, appearing utterly ordinary to the naked eye, yet it was as though thunder had exploded within Li Ziming's spiritual sense. In his perception, water and fire intertwined upon the vessel's surface, spiritual energy scattered and fled as if avoiding a calamity, and a towering peak seemed to manifest. Sent out of nothing within the great void. Tinglin spoke with a hint of hope in her voice. "I do possess this Purple Mansion realm spirit item. However, the Boundless Water Fire repels spiritual energy, and driving it with one's divine ability is extremely draining. Does Taoist friend have confidence in handling it? If you intend to refine pills with this fire, you may need to prepare some pills that clear and strengthen spiritual sense." But Li Ziming cared little for any so-called boundless water fire. His spiritual sense swept out, and the talisman chi within him stirred in response. So long as it was fire, it could not escape the grasp of the valley wind-leading fire. He had never relied on spiritual sense to control flame, nor did he ever worry about depletion. How else could he have single-handedly sustained the Li family's pill production while cultivating? He simply said, "So long as the main ingredient is not a cultivator, and the pill will not violate my family's precepts, then I can refine it. My skill is not exceptional though, and the yield will likely not exceed 3 pills." Good, the Taoist master in the autumn yellow robe was slightly surprised by his confidence and speculated inwardly. Bright yang accompanied by radiant fire wields mastery over fire, yet is not fire itself. Perhaps that is why he can command boundless water fire beyond the ordinary. Her confidence in the man before her grew. Taoist Master Tinglin smiled, nodded, and said solemnly, "As long as Taoist friend can refine this pill for me, and your family possesses a suitable spirit item, then the Moongaze Lake formation will be my responsibility. If you intend to relocate the formation instead, you may entrust that to me as well. The value would differ, of course, and I will make further compensation accordingly." Li Ziming still had a complete Purple Mansion Realm spirit item in his possession, but he had no intention of revealing it for now. He let out a slow breath and raised his brow. "I do have a question. Taoist master shooting of the Zio family in Lixia is far superior to me in the alchemical arts. Why not seek him out? You might obtain far more pills and avoid wasting such a precious portion of heavenly origin essence." Li Ziming had heard of heavenly origin essence ever since his Qi cultivation realm days. It was a Purple Mansion Realm spirit water, famed for refining the immortal foundation and reviving the dead, also known as origin water. Its value was surpassed only by top-tier spirit items like Supreme Yin Moonlight. While many spirit items could save lives in a critical moment, few could truly resurrect the dead. Moreover, the ability to refine one's immortal foundation could elevate an otherwise insignificant cultivator to greatness, allowing them to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Purple Mansion Realm direct descendants. Once this pill was refined, the boundless water fire used as the harmonizing agent could still be preserved, but the heavenly origin essence would be gone. If it were up to Li Ziming, the thought alone would make his heart ache unbearably. When he raised the question, Taoist Master Tinglin shook her head and said, "I have thought about seeking that senior as well, but I would not even be able to see him. Even if I did, I could not bring myself to trust him. Then, even if I forced myself to trust him, the price of having him refine this pill would be outrageously high. That old man's thoughts are as deep and unfathomable as an abyss. He's far less approachable than you." Li Ziming nodded, though he found her explanation oddly phrased. "So in the end, I'm just the cheaper alternative. I'm easier to talk to because you need something from me." Taoist Master Tinglin sneaked a glance at him, chuckled twice and said, "Taoist friend, don't overthink it. Our Purple Smoke Gate requires many pills refined, and several of my friends also struggle with this path. If this matter succeeds, there will be many more pills to refine, and great benefit awaits both our families." As she continued to paint the grand prospects of their future, Li Ziming responded with a few perfunctory, "Yes, yes, and very well." Tinglin then pushed the jade slip toward him and said, "I shall first entrust this jade slip to Taoist friend. They contain records and insights from my predecessors on pill refinement and may serve as a valuable reference for you." Li Ziming was indeed tempted by the Purple Mansion Realm alchemical insights within the jade slip, yet he did not reach for it. At last, he understood where that faint sense of strangeness he had felt all along was coming from. "So Tinglin sought me out solely for alchemy. It likely has nothing to do with Shanji Prefecture at all. Kong Guxi, oh Kong Guxi. Even if you're willing to hand over Shanji Prefecture, they might not even want it. You may end up having to beg them to take it." Chapter 11:23, The Will of Purple Smoke, I. Laughed. Thinking it through, Li Ziming took a sip of his tea, but he did not put away the jade slip, merely sighing as he spoke. "How does Taoist Master view the matter of Profound Peak Gate?" Tinglin saw that he was in no hurry to accept it and realized he was waiting for her response. A faint smile crossed her lips as she replied, "I have spent many years traveling across the outer seas and do not know the situation well. Taoist Master Changxi had gone far despite hailing from a minor family, which is truly remarkable. My master once mentioned him. He is someone who places great importance on his family." Li Ziming raised his brows and looked at her as the woman continued, "After all, they are our neighbors. My Purple Smoke Gate has been watching them for a long time. Heiying and Hating in the early days, then Gusun and Tingyun later on, were all excellent aides. Since he valued his family, he remained still. Even a cunning rabbit keeps 3 burrows, so how could a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator not do the same? Now that he is dead, Profound Peak Gate may appear beyond saving, but in truth, its burrows are more numerous than its roads forward. The immortal gate might not survive, yet its bloodline and Tao lineage remain as unshakable as Mount Tai. Besides, is there not the Moongaze immortal family?" Li Ziming quickly shook his head. Although he had never interacted with Changxi before, and though the man's name had often been accompanied by mocking jokes when he first heard it, now he understood better and replied, "Senior Changxi was deeply thoughtful. It was only Shanji Prefecture, yet the old master spoke of it again and again, saying its millions of people were the work of his life. They had been protected for centuries. Now that he can no longer safeguard them, he looked around and found that only Purple Smoke Immortal Gate remained a sacred land of orthodox cultivation. He could only rest assured if those people were entrusted to the righteous path. Whatever Tinglin truly thought, with such praise placed upon her, she could not let the first thing she said be a rejection. She replied, "We can only thank the late senior for his high regard, but as you yourself have said, my Purple Smoke Gate is an orthodox gate of the Tao, a sacred land of cultivation. Matters of the immortal Tao must, of course, be guided by burning talismans in prayer, following the immortal mandate of the Origin Mansion, guarding one's heart and clarity of mind, and devoting oneself wholly to cultivation. Back then, the Upper Mansion assigned several prefectures to my Purple Smoke Gate, and we have kept watch over those few ever since. We cannot cross the boundary. I ask for your understanding." Moonlight Origin Mansion. When she finished speaking, Li Ziming was truly stunned. On his way here, he had considered hundreds of possible reasons for her refusal, but he had never expected this one. The excuse was so lofty and righteous that it left him speechless for a moment before he finally murmured, "So that's how it is. I've been presumptuous." The faint blue at the corners of Tinglin's eyes shimmered slightly as she looked at him a moment longer and replied, "Your esteemed family is a rising power, and may not be aware. In truth, first Zio, then Li. By custom, once one becomes an immortal family, one departs from the Azure Pond sect and governs a land of one's own. This precedent, this system, was once the rule of the Origin Mansion, and Senior C is merely following the ancient order." After she finished speaking, Li Ziming realized that Tinglin's earlier words had not been mere excuses. Many regulations of the Moonlight Origin Mansion were still operating in Jiangnan. Although they did not always take effect, Purple Mansion Realm Taoist masters would not defy them so long as there was no major conflict of interest. He recalled the conservative naming divisions of the Immortal Sects and Immortal Gates, as well as the apparent unity between the Green Pine Supreme Yang Dao lineages. The withdrawal of various families from Green Pine Temple that left 6 gates standing alone came to his mind, as well as the Xuanmiao Temple's deferential respect toward the Sword Gate. Even though these 6 factions schemed against one another in secret, the territories rarely changed. Each continued to guard its own small patch of land, and their battles were all taken overseas. The 6 truly held a transcendent status. Cultivators of the Yue cultivating sect avoid the world. Profound Peak Gate has become a mere name, and Yue State is now, in truth, ruled by 2 sects, 6 gates, and 3 families. 1 sect and 4 gates cannot be touched. Gradually, Li Ziming began to grasp the picture, and an unexpected thought surfaced. Snowjai Gate has sealed its mountain for centuries. Mortals enter, yet no disciples leave, and not a single faction has ever moved against it. Could this be the reason? It might prek. Easily be because the surroundings are tightly encircled by the Green Pine Dao lineage, and the land itself is barren, that it has managed to drag on until now. Many thoughts passed through his mind, but outwardly he only sighed. Taoist Tinglin, my family has done everything it can to protect them, but we can no longer preserve the entirety of Shanji Prefecture. So many lives there, how pitiful. Tinglin let out a soft laugh and replied, "That is not difficult. Simply invite a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator to reside there. No one considers land in Jiangnan undesirable, and there is no shortage of Purple Mansion Realm cultivators who wish to establish a Dao lineage here. The problem is finding someone to vouch for them. The old ones do not dare to come, and the young ones are too frivolous. As long as our 2 families reach an agreement and then consult the Sword Gate, the matter will be settled." That set Li Ziming thinking, and the more he thought, the more his brows furrowed. If there truly was a friendly Purple Mansion Realm cultivator nearby, it would not be such a bad thing. Yet with the profound Peak Gate Dao lineage in his family's hands, it would not sit well with others. Sending members of the Kong family there would be awkward for his own family and difficult to explain to Xuanmiao Temple. It is worth a try. As that thought circled in his mind, he put away the jade slip and asked tentatively, "If we proceed with this idea, could the Immortal Gate send people to Shanji first to consolidate matters? My family has no strength left to guard it, and I fear that Shanji Prefecture will already have been looted clean by the time we hear any news." "That is secondary." Seeing him put the item away, Tinglin frowned and said, "If the matter is to be settled, there are 2 conditions. First, Profound Peak Mountain must be given to them. How could a dignified Taoist master establish a sect when every place in the prefecture where spiritual energy converges belongs to someone else? Where would they cultivate? That would be a disgrace. Second, Kong Heiying must die." Li Ziming had indeed expected those words, and he sighed inwardly. Tinglin's expression grew serious as she said, "Let me offer you a word of warning, Taoist friend. If Kong Heiying does not die, the conflict between your family and the capital immortal Tao will grow heavier by the day and rapidly deteriorate into something irreconcilable. Yi Hui is not a stubborn or extreme man, but even he cannot tolerate Kong Heiying. His fortunes run deep, and he truly has the potential to break through. Taoist friend, you still have to refine pills for me. If you and Yi Hui end up fighting in earnest, the entire riverbank region will likely be thrown into chaos, and there will be nowhere left to refine my pills. It is the same with Profound Peak Mountain. If the mountain gate is given to them, what Taoist master could tolerate several Foundation Establishment realm cultivators attempting breakthroughs within their own gate? If they succeed and emerge from seclusion, whose sect would the mountain gate belong to? Who would Shanji Prefecture belong to? Since the Profound Peak Gate lineage is already in your family's hands, Taoist masters seeking to move inland will hesitate. Once others see Shanji Prefecture and Profound Peak Gate, the Kong family of the wilderness will, at best, be called a remnant family and, at worst, surviving scum. At the very least, your family will have to send the Kong family there and let them put on a grand display of gratitude before anyone will consider it even a partial reconciliation. Although Li Ziming knew this matter would be difficult to handle, he still sighed after hearing her words and nodded as he said, "I understand. Do you need the pill urgently, Taoist friend? If this matter isn't settled, it will likely be difficult to refine pills right away." "It's no matter, I can still wait 3 to 5 years. Besides, I will be heading to the Northern Sea in the coming days and won't have time to set up the formation for you at the moment." Tinglin had clearly not expected Li Ziming to refine the pills for her immediately. After a few words of polite conversation and confirming the details of their agreement, she pointed to the clay vessel on the table and said, "I'll give you the heavenly quintessence expelling pill recipe to study first. Once you're ready, you can come to my purple smoke gate to collect the boundless water fire and the heavenly origin essence." Li Ziming agreed. Tinglin escorted him out, and when they reached the foot of Purple Jade platform, Kui Juyan and the Purple Smoke Gate cultivator Wei Danying were chatting and laughing in a friendly atmosphere, far more lively and relaxed than the exchange of interests between the two Taoist masters. Though Kui Juyan's appearance was unremarkable, his broad knowledge and elegant demeanor made conversing with him an enjoyable affair. Wei Danying listened with great interest, but as soon as the two Taoist masters appeared, both immediately grew respectful and stepped back. "Farewell, Jiajing." Tinglin escorted him out of the blessed land, and Li Ziming departed in a streak of light, his face still thoughtful. Chapter 11:24, The Will of Purple Smoke, II. After a long while, Li Ziming sighed inwardly. Profound Peak Mountain and Shanji Prefecture are no longer things my family can hold on to. Li Ziming had considered the Purple Smoke Gate stance, but he had not expected Tinglin to speak of killing Kong Heiying without the slightest hesitation. It was a revelation that truly surprised him. Tinglin had spoken from the Purple Smoke Gate's perspective earlier, and Li Ziming clearly understood that they had no intention of occupying Shanji. However, they did intend on inviting a Purple Mansion realm cultivator as a shield and to build goodwill, and his family's presence in the region was, to some extent, obstructing that plan. Yet his thoughts did not stop at the Purple Smoke Gate. In the next moment, another name surfaced in his mind, Yi Hui. If the emergence of another Purple Mansion realm cultivator in Shanji Prefecture was merely an awkward inconvenience for the Li family that brought them little benefit, it would be nothing short of excellent for Yi Hui, provided he was willing to part with some interests to draw such a figure in. Yi Hui was a cultivator from the Eastern Sea. If he truly could not take Profound Peak Mountain and chose to abandon it by inviting a friendly Purple Mansion realm cultivator into Shanji Prefecture instead, Li Ziming's own situation would instantly become precarious. That Purple Mansion realm cultivator would not only covet Profound Peak Mountain, but would likely seek to sever the Kong family's Tao lineage entirely. On the other hand, if the Purple Mansion realm cultivator was invited by Purple Smoke Gate, the Li family would still have the option of sending the Kong family back and merging the Profound Peak Gate Tao lineage into another power. But if the cultivator was Yi Hui's ally, there would be no reason to send them back, and open hostility would be the only path left. Yi Hui would then be free of worries. My family, on the other hand, would be too busy facing the threats from the wilderness to even spare a thought for Jiangbei. Yi Hui had not yet taken this step for two simple reasons. First, he could not bear to abandon Profound Peak Mountain, and second, he had yet to reach an agreement with Purple Smoke Gate or the Sword Gate. but that did not mean it would never happen. Has Yihui spoken to Tinglin already? Were her words meant as goodwill, or as a subtle warning after failing to reach an agreement with him? A chill rose in his heart. No matter what, Shanji Prefecture and Profound Peak Mountain must be dealt with swiftly. But if the mountain gate is to be handled, then the Kong family's foundation establishment realm cultivators in seclusion must also be handled. Even if it means easing tensions with the capital Immortal Dao slightly to free up time for pill refinement, at the very least, Kong Heiying must be dealt with. Changxi had said there were 3 people in seclusion: the guest cultivator Fu En, his great-grandson Kong Heiying, and the former gate master Kong Tingyun. In truth, Li Ziming could not even confirm whether the one who died back then was indeed Fu En, nor could he be certain that the ones in seclusion within the gate were those individuals. Even though Li Ziming could understand Changxi's state of mind in his later years of trusting no one, he still felt a wave of weariness and faint anger as he thought, hiding them here and there makes it impossible to help them. Enough. Since Changxi thought things through to this degree, there's no way he didn't realize Kong Heiying could well determine Profound Peak Gate's survival. I can no longer care what the people of Profound Peak Gate think. If we don't take over Profound Peak Gate soon and use the immortal mirror to uncover the truth, then the Profound Peak Gate is not worth preserving at all. He left the territory of Purple Smoke Gate behind as he headed for home, plans gradually forming in his mind. His figure appeared atop Zhaijing Mountain, and Kui Juyan descended from the heavenly light, standing silently beside him. Li Ziming gave an order: go summon the ones in charge and bring Quiyuan as well. Call Chenghui out too, we'll go together. Wilderness. Dawn was just breaking, and a damp mist spread through the mountains. Several days had passed since news of Taoist Master Changxi's final decree, yet Kong Guxi still hadn't fully recovered. He had planned to recite incantations until midnight, but lost in thought, he looked up to find that dawn had already arrived. After changing his robes, he stepped out of the hall, only to find the area deserted. The stone steps had not been swept and were strewn with fallen leaves, making him wonder if everyone had defected to other factions. After circling around, he finally came across Kong Yu, whose face was flushed red from drinking deep into the night. Kong Guxi saluted him and asked, "Granduncle, where did Quiyuan and the others go?" Kong Yu had been drinking all night, but even if he wanted to get drunk, he could not. He was still perfectly clear-headed as he replied, "You had locked up Xiaxiang. A group of cultivators from the capital Immortal Dao has arrived in the wilderness, likely from Shanji Prefecture. I don't know how chaotic things have gotten, but Quiyuan has taken people to intercept them." He paused and added with emphasis, "The Li family people are there too." Kong Guxi acknowledged this with a sound, then asked about Kong Yuli's whereabouts. "Where is elder brother?" Kong Yu raised his brows and replied, "Lord Chenghui sent someone here, asking for our family's soul lamps and life jades. Your elder brother just took him there." Kong Guxi fell silent and turned toward the front courtyard. A commotion rose around the stone steps, as large bundles were carried up in several sacks. The gate master of Profound Peak Gate raised his brows and looked over, seeing his elder brother Kong Gyuli climbing the mountain with Fu Yuezi at his side. Kong Gyuli looked lost and despondent, while Fu Yuezi was the same as always, carrying a Dharma artifact on his back and waving at him. Kong Guxi went up to greet them, grasping the old man's hand and finding it icy cold. He asked softly, "I heard Granduncle say, you only just left." Kong Gyuli spoke in a desolate voice, "Yes, I just left. But once the news from a few days ago reached them, the elders in the mountains quickly packed up the soul lamps, life jades, Dao lineage manuals, and other artifacts. They all want to flee here, so of course they were swift about it." Kong Guxi was at a loss for words. Streams of light streaked endlessly across the sky, and the clamor on the mountain only grew louder. When he took a few steps forward, he saw a group of people descending from the sky. They were led by a golden-eyed man with the bearing of a dragon and tiger, and Kong Guxi felt as though a giant hand had seized his heart. He hurried forward and said, "Greetings, family head, what brings you here?" Li Xiaowei, who had always been courteous toward him, nodded and said, "My injuries have improved considerably. By order of the Taoist master, I've come to take command here in the wilderness." Sweat beaded on Kong Guxi's forehead as he nodded repeatedly. Before he could ask anything further, heavenly light flickered before him, and the surroundings grew suddenly bright. All around, people lowered their heads and knelt in reverence. All of a sudden, a Taoist master clad in white robes embroidered with golden patterns stood in front of them, surveying them all. The sight frightened Kong Gyuli into stumbling back several steps, and Kong Guxi started violently before dropping to his knees in obeisance. Whether or not they had seen him before, everyone from Profound Peak Gate knew a Taoist master when they beheld one. In an instant, no one remained standing on the mountain, as waves of respectful voices echoed through the air. As Kong Guxi knelt, he stole a glance upward and saw that Li Ziming's expression betrayed little emotion. Yet Profound Peak Gate had only just received the ancestral orders concerning Shanji and the Mountain Gate. The weight of the orders left him trembling with fear as an inexplicable dread rose from within. He pressed his knees firmly to the ground, and only then did the Taoist master speak, his voice neither hurried nor wrathful. "Bring me Kong Heiying's soul lamp." A chill seeped from Kong Guxi's heart all the way down to the soles of his feet. As a gate master, he could not grasp the full intricacies of the Purple Mansion realm cultivators' struggles or the grand schemes at play, but from the direction of events before and after, he had already sensed too many unfavorable signs. All he could do was respond with utmost respect. This junior obeys. Chapter 11:25, Indistinguishable Truth and Falsehood. The black-robed cultivators had already fetched the items. As soon as Kong Guxi gave the word, the guest cultivators carried in a stand lined with 2 neat rows of soul lamps. The base was crafted from a dark-colored wood, and the faint blue flames danced gently. The bottom row held only life jades. They clearly belonged to disciple-level guest cultivators and were therefore not very important. A tier higher were the lamps of Kong Kyuyin and the others. Most had already gone out. Above that were those of Kong Guxi's generation. The lamps were larger, with more intricate patterns, and only 3 of the 10 remained lit. The next tier was almost completely extinguished, with only a single lamp still burning, which Li Ziming C. Would tell belonged to Kong Tingyun. 1 level higher stood another single lamp on a gilded base, which should correspond to Kong Heiying. At the very top rested an extinguished soul lamp with gold and silver patterns and a jade base. It was Changxi's lamp. That single piece alone made the stand incredibly heavy, though the guest cultivators, being Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators, held it steady with ease. Kong Guxi was being obsequious now. The ancestral soul lamps were normally placed in the ancestral hall, where no one dared to even touch them, yet they were being carried up as if serving dishes. The few from Profound Peak Gate all felt humiliated and lowered their heads in shame. But no one paid them any attention. Everyone stared curiously and in awe at the lamps. Only a young man in crimson robes stood behind Li Xiaowei with his hands clasped, his golden eyes fixed on the Profound Peak Gate cultivators. Sun Bai tugged gently at Kong Gyuli's sleeve to calm him. Kong Kyuyin lowered her head and closed her eyes, while Profound Peak Gate's gate master Kong Guxi stood at the front, bowing respectfully. When he sensed the young man's gaze, he lowered his head even more. Li Zhongqian withdrew his gaze and gestured to Li Qiwen, who was dressed in a cloud silk gown. She too looked at Kong Guxi and spoke through secret techniques. "That man is the Profound Peak Gate master. The Taoist master wishes to investigate thoroughly. He had better cooperate." Li Zhongqian replied, "If not for Kong Guxi, the Profound Peak Gate Tao lineage would have fallen long ago. I've long heard Granduncle Chenghui speak of him. Let's see how he handles this." The crowd remained outwardly silent, though many were already whispering their private thoughts. Li Ziming was aware of this and simply instructed, "Speak, Gate Master." Kong Guxi quickly obeyed, stepping forward and pointing to the brightest soul lamp, the one on a gilded base, placed 1 tier above Kong Tingyun's, as he explained, "This is the soul lamp of my granduncle, Kong Heiying." Everyone looked upward. Li Ziming said nothing, while Li Xiaowei beside him spoke, "Bring the portraits." Before Kong Guxi could respond, someone below had already brought them up. Li Wen received the portraits and unfurled one, revealing a broad four-headed, square-faced middle-aged man. Beneath it lay more than a dozen similar paintings, all nearly identical. Kong Guxi did not need to offer an explanation. It was clear the portraits had been drawn separately for his disciples and guest cultivators. He lowered his head without speaking. When one of the black-robed cultivators came forward to examine the soul lamp, he bowed respectfully and said, "Reporting to the Taoist master, although Lord Heiying often secluded himself in cultivation, he did appear once before his breakthrough. I have met him, and the aura matches that of this soul lamp exactly. This is without doubt his lamp." The aura within a soul lamp always matched that of its owner. Several others came forward to verify as well, including a few rogue cultivators who had seen him before. All confirmed the identification beyond question. Only then did Li Ziming sweep the lamp with his spiritual sense, memorizing the aura within. Li Ziming could easily summon the immortal mirror to identify the cultivators currently in seclusion within the secret chamber. Yet this matter could not be made public, and the only profound Peak Gate cultivator he had met in person was Kong Tingyun. That meant even if Li Ziming used the immortal mirror to determine who was inside, he still would not recognize them. He could only rely on their appearance, and appearances were easily disguised. Those of the Purple Mansion realm could even alter their features entirely. Only aura could not be faked. Now that he had recorded the Soul Lamp's aura, Li Ziming sent for Fu En's records, his aura, cultivation level, and physical features. Though Kong Guxi didn't understand the purpose, he complied with every request. Fu En was rumored to be dead and thus had no soul lamp, but after some searching, they found a Dharma artifact he had once refined with his own blood. The portrait showed a man with a scarred face who seemed far from pleasant. Li Ziming was now confident he could distinguish the cultivators in seclusion, but this grand display was not simply for identifying auras. It also served to justify his future judgments and actions, whether through divination or shamanic spell arts, all to avoid raising suspicion. Kong Guxi knelt firmly on the ground and finally heard the Taoist master speak from above. "Do you have any personal belongings of these individuals?" Kong Guxi respectfully replied quickly, "After so many decades, most can no longer be found. Apart from one weapon of Fu En's, the rest of the Dharma artifacts have changed hands and lost their connection. Fortunately, Lord Heiying still has living descend." "Ants though, Lady Tingyun." "No matter, bring whatever you can find." Li Ziming nodded. This was, after all, merely for appearances. It did no harm. Having items belonging to Kong Heiying and Fu En was sufficient. Attendants quickly moved to make the arrangements. At that point, the demonstration had served its purpose. The vague mention of personal belongings left ample room for speculation among the gathered families, making any subsequent action appear reasonable. Li Ziming waved his hand to dismiss everyone, leaving only Kong Guxi behind. Li Ziming said, "I visited Purple Smoke Gate and spoke with Taoist Master Tinglin. Shanji Prefecture cannot be held, and your mountain gate will likely fall as well." Kong Guxi felt a chill spread through his heart, but Li Ziming quickly reassured, "Don't overthink it." The old Taoist master understood this clearly. "The two may not even be within the gate. I'm seeking a Taoist master skilled in the arts of divination to determine exactly where Kong Heiying is. If neither is within the mountain gate, it's best to make preparations early." The words poured over him like scalding water, melting away every trace of a chill in his heart. His eyes reddened instantly as he thought, "Yes, Ancestor has always been far-sighted. He must have foreseen this. No need to worry, no need to worry." Seeing that he understood, Li Ziming's figure vanished into the great void. Kong Guxi kowtowed deeply, then hurried out of the courtyard. Tear marks still streaked his face, but his steps were now noticeably lighter. Outside the courtyard, Li Chenghui was waiting. He spoke a few perfunctory words about confidentiality, though with so many eyes around earlier, secrecy was merely for show. Still, Kong Guxi responded with utmost respect, swearing his loyalty with conviction. When Li Chenghui departed, the mountain fell silent at once. The bustle of moments ago vanished like the passing wind. A weary Kong Guxi stepped out of the hall and saw the table bearing the soul lamps placed in the courtyard. Kong Gyuli sat on the steps before it, staring blankly. He started toward him, but Kong Qiuyan was nowhere to be seen. In the distance, he noticed Kong Yu kneeling outside the courtyard, bowing repeatedly before the table full of soul lamps. Kong Guxi quickly stopped, not daring to approach or to command him, and called out softly, "Granduncle." Kong Yu continued bowing, heedless of everything, his forehead striking the ground with dull thuds 9 times in succession. Then the old man exhaled deeply and remained motionless against the floor. Kong Guxi waited a moment, but when his spiritual sense detected something amiss, his expression changed drastically. He rushed forward, shouting, "Granduncle." He lifted Kong Yu up, only to see dark blood flowing steadily from the old man's nose. The dark blood trailed down his nose and neck like a thin brook. The once smiling face had dimmed and stiffened, frozen in a lifeless expression. The old man's upper eyelids had risen to a horrifying degree, exposing the whites of his eyes. His mouth was twisted into a semblance of a smile from repeated struggle, yet the look was neither smile nor grimace. Overwhelming terror had been buried deep within his expression. Kong Guxi jolted in horror as he realized that the old man was utterly dead. His head felt as though it had been struck by a hammer, as gold stars burst in his vision. Frozen in disbelief and terror, He stood motionless for several seconds before hearing Kong Gyuli's frantic cry behind him. Dazed, Kong Guxi murmured, "Why?" Chapter 11:26, Indistinguishable Truth and Falsehood, II. Kong Guxi had prepared himself for every hardship, but he had never imagined Kong Yu would take his own life so suddenly. Though the old man was frail and often melancholic, Kong Guxi had never sensed a will to die in him. The circumstances from earlier had been awkward, but not as despairing as the day their ancestors' final decree had been revealed before all. Perhaps this was a sign that the profound Peak Gate Dao lineage truly was about to lose its mountain gate, but had that day come already? Was it necessary to go this far? If this was the result of some divine ability's influence, Li Ziming had still been on the mountain, so no one could have acted without his knowledge. Could someone have struck in those few dozen breaths after his departure? But what benefit could there possibly be in harming old Kong Yu? His thoughts were shredded by the absurdity before him. He didn't even think to lay down Kong Yu's corpse until Kong Gyuli rushed over and pulled it from his grasp. Kong Gyuli and Kong Yu came from two closely related branches. They had been once neglected by the family, which had only deepened their bond. Wailing in grief, Kong Gyuli took the old man into his arms, while Kong Guxi stood frozen, pupils dilating as realization dawned. In a mournful voice, he said, "Grandunk." Li could not bear to witness the fall of Profound Peak Mountain, and thus took his own life. Profound Peak Mountain Gate. Li Ziming tore through the great void in a streak of light and descended onto the mountain. He flicked a finger. A jade pendant flew from his sleeve and shone upon the Grand Formation. The Purple Mansion Realm Formation, the 100 Mountain Spirit containing formation, instantly opened of its own accord, and Li Ziming stepped inside with ease. Most of the Profound Peak Mountain Gate was already under the Li family's control. Only the Dao Collection and the Treasury remained untouched. The 100 Mountain Spirit containing formation was no exception. Li Ziming's authority over it far surpassed that of Kong Guxi. As his radiant form appeared within the formation, his spiritual sense linked with the formation plate, sealing off the great void. Every corner of Profound Peak Mountain came into view. The once bustling gate was now desolate, with only one or two disciples scattered across several peaks. As his mind turned, the locations of various secluded chambers appeared one after another. He thought, now that I'm linked with the Grand Formation, there are 5 active closed chambers detected. The one Kong Guxi brought me to before is detached from the formation, so that makes 6 in total. Feigning contemplation, he silently chanted in his heart, "I, Li Ziming of the Li family, humbly invoke the immortal mirror to explore the hidden, perceive the subtle, illuminate the profound, discern all directions, and seize spirits and gods alike." A chill rose from his Shenyang mansion. Neither the great void nor the physical world changed in any way, yet Li Ziming's spiritual sense expanded exponentially, bringing every illusion and reality within Profound Peak Mountain Gate into sharp focus. Indeed, the cold emanation of the immortal mirror doesn't travel through the great void, it transcends it entirely. Not even spirits or gods can track it. There were only a few objects in the world capable of functioning across great distances. Whether they were soul lamps, life jades, or formation-based secret techniques, they all relied on the great void as their medium. Thus, when Purple Mansion Realm cultivators fought within the void, such items often malfunctioned. Life jades would sometimes be destroyed, and minor formations would weaken or strengthen at random. Yet this cool aura clearly stemmed from the immortal mirror, appearing out of thin air beyond his comprehension. It sent a chill straight to his heart. Shaking off these stray thoughts, Li Ziming forced himself to focus. His spiritual sense found the nearest chamber. He ignored the barriers of the formation as he phased through the wall, only to find a pitch-black chamber where a skeleton knelt upon a meditation cushion, faint golden motes scattered around it. Failed his foundation establishment realm breakthrough, it's the heavenly gilded helm. This was most likely one of Changxi's trained enforcers. Having failed his breakthrough, he had perished, leaving the Profound Peak Gate even more desolate. Even his corpse had been left unattended within the cave dwelling. Li Ziming withdrew his spiritual sense and entered another chamber, finding it completely empty except for a few formations quietly operating on their own. He proceeded to inspect the remaining 3 chambers one by one. Apart from another corpse, the other 2 were just as vacant. After circling around, he finally arrived at the secluded chamber that Kong Guxi had identified as Kong Tingyun's place of cultivation. This place had been deliberately concealed and disconnected even from the Purple Mansion Realm Grand Formation. The gate had been forged from profound patterned stone, which insulated the inside and harmonized with earth virtue. When Li Ziming's spiritual sense passed through the walls, he found the interior layered with rich spiritual soil. Its spiritual qi was so dense that faint star-like lights flickered within. The cultivator's physical body had seemingly dissolved into spiritual qi, fueling the breakthrough process, and was almost completely obscured by the swirling aura. Yet the presence was unmistakable. Li Ziming immediately recognized it. It's Fu En. The so-called secluded chamber of Kong Tingyun actually contained the profound peak gate guest cultivator, Fu En. What a dense spiritual energy! Profound peak gate truly provided ample resources. The spiritual energy here is enhanced by spirit stones. It's even better than what I had back in Mount Wu. Though he's just a guest cultivator, his foundation is quite solid. But Changxi, who was it that died back then? The soul lamps of Kong Heiying and Kong Tingyun still burned bright, revealing Taoist master Changxi's true arrangements. He had foreseen the fate of his gate, that profound peak mountain was doomed to be occupied. Thus, the two had been relocated so. Nowhere else, leaving only Fu En within the mountain. As for the one who had supposedly fallen that year, it was most likely a decoy sacrificed in their stead. So when my Li family can no longer bear the pressure and abandons profound peak mountain, the only one who will die will be Fu En. As for Kong Tingyun and Kong Heiying, they're probably cultivating safely somewhere else. Then, I can't wait any longer. If he had found the profound peak gate direct descendants, Kong Heiying or Kong Tingyun, Li Ziming might have gritted his teeth and thought of another way to save them. But since it was merely a guest cultivator like Fu En, who bore no relation to his family, there was no justification to keep holding Shanji Prefecture and profound peak mountain gate under mounting pressure. Li Ziming sighed softly. The man inside was in the midst of a breakthrough, yet the mountain gate already belonged to another. One could imagine his despair. Still, Li Ziming was no saint. He had no obligation to sacrifice himself for another's fate. All he could do was act without harming his own family. He sighed inwardly. Since the mountain gate can be abandoned, I'll discuss it properly with Purple Smoke Gate. When a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator enters the mountain, we'll leave Fu En here to complete his breakthrough. He's unlikely to succeed anyway. When he dies, his fall will only enrich this place with more spiritual energy. If by some miracle he succeeds, well, he's of another surname. We can deal with that later. He organized his thoughts, rehearsing the rhetoric he would use, and mused to himself, good. From now on, the story is that Changxi tampered with the soul lamps. The first to die was Kong Heiying, the one inside the sect is Fu En, and Kong Tingyun's whereabouts are unknown. That way, relinquishing the mountain will appease both the capital Immortal Tao and the Purple Smoke Gate. Whether they believe it or not, that's their problem later. Chapter 11:27, Jiang, Eyes. The Wilderness. A streak of light flashed across the sky as a pale gold long boat sped through the clouds. A man in white robes stood within. Beside him, Li Jiangqian and Li Qian waited quietly, while Li Wen guarded the stern with a golden mace in hand. Li Xiaowei had only stayed in the profound Peak Gate residence for one night before setting off. He seldom wore white, but since it was the memorial day of his father, Li Qingliao, he had dressed accordingly. One hand rested upon the railing of the Dharma boat, and he remained silent. The Li family did not possess many flying Dharma artifacts, and flying shuttles were even rarer. The Li family governed the eastern and northern Mount Yue regions, where countless cultivators of various unrefined qi resided. Many were already forced to leave and fend for themselves, and they had numerous poor cultivators capable of flight among their number. Thus, there was little need for the family to provide flying equipment for ordinary tasks. After entering the family's island, both the Li family's direct descendants and talented outsiders were subject to strict supervision. With so many affairs to handle, whether in cultivation or mundane duties, few traveled beyond 50 kilometers within the region. Only a handful, pampered by their parents, bothered to use flying shuttles. As for Li Jiangqian and his brothers, they simply did not dare to request one. After all, neither Li Ziming nor Li Xiaowei had ever requisitioned a flying Dharma artifact during their cultivation. Since the brothers had no reason to travel north or to the eastern sea, they had even less justification. The Dharma boat beneath their feet was the first flying Dharma artifact crafted after the Li family became an immortal family. It was the final work of an elder cultivator from the western shore named He Jiumen. This Dharma boat, named Curved Blessing, ranked as a superior artifact among Qi cultivation realm tools, though He Jiumen's humble background meant he had never mastered the art of transformation. The boat could not freely change its size and thus could not compare to Ningguan's ever-flowing jade cloudliner. Still, aside from that flaw, it was splendid in every respect. Fortunately, no one could tell that it lacked a transformation ability, making it presentable enough. The boat cut through the wind with great speed as it made its way toward the eastern shore. Li Xiaowei silently accepted a dark-colored handwritten letter from Li Wen, glanced through it briefly, then slipped it into his sleeve. Kong Yu took his own life. Standing behind him, Li Jiangqian failed to notice his father's shift in expression. The Dharma boat gradually slowed to a halt over a mountain range on the eastern shore. Moments later, the sound of hooves echoed as a youth rode forth on a black horse with crimson eyes. As he neared, he dismounted, boarded the vessel, and greeted respectfully, "Father." Li Jiangqian studied him for a moment and recognized his third brother, Li Jiangxia. A cheerful smile spread across his face as he listened to their father's gentle tone. "It has been quite some time since we last met. Your second brother has returned from Profound Peak Gate as well. Come aboard. We'll head back to the lake together." A smile filled Li Jiangxia's face as he bowed to Li Jiangqian and Li Qiwen, saying clearly, "Eldest brother, it has been so long since we last met. I've missed you dearly." Li Jiangqian had spent some time with his second brother, Li Jianglong, but had only met his third brother, Li Jiangxia, a few times. It truly had been a long while, and he replied with a smile, "Your cultivation has improved, third brother. You must train diligently in the Qi cultivation realm. How are your spell arts coming along? Dao cultivation is the foundation. You should make good use of your time to practice defensive arts, as they will greatly aid your foundation establishment breakthrough." Li Jiangxia's brows rose as he smiled back. "The family's affairs are many, and you work hard to manage them, yet you still remember your younger brother. Thank you for your concern, brother. I will remember your words." Their exchange ended there, but Li Xiaowei had heard every word. Without speaking, he led the group swiftly onward. Moongaze Lake soon appeared in the distance when Li Qiwen, after a long deliberation, finally spoke, "Family head, calculating the fate of Profound Peak Gate's direct descendants will be difficult. My shamanic talisman arts already face great constraints when divining Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. It will be even harder for those who have broken into the Purple Mansion realm." Earlier, Li Ziming had clearly mentioned the object in his possession in relation to divination, which everyone present had recognized. Yet Li Xiaowei knew Li Ziming had only used divination as an excuse for the immortal mirror, so he replied, "It's fine. I will ask the Taoist master to handle this matter. You need not concern yourself." Relieved, Li Qiwen withdrew. When the Dharma boat came to a gentle stop in the region, Li Jiangqian followed Li Xiaowei into the main hall. As they walked through the colonnade, he saw a man in dark robes standing before the entrance. The man's head was slightly bowed, his manner calm and gentle, as a string of jade hung from his waist. It took Li Jiangqian a moment to recognize him. It was his younger brother, Li Jianglong. Li Jianglong had grown considerably in the nearly 2 years since they had last met. The traces of youth had faded, and a Chen family gentleness had grown beneath his golden eyes and long brows. His temperament had changed as well, appearing softer and more composed. Li Xiaowei took his seat at the head, and Li Jiangqian stepped to his left, standing respectfully as his father spoke, "Bring Lianger and Nianer here." Li Jiangqian continued quietly observing Li Jianglong, who had retreated to a corner, bowing silently with his eyes fixed to the ground. He was entirely unlike the open and cheerful Li Jiangxia. Below, Li Jiangxia began reporting on the affairs of the eastern shore, matters that had already been delivered to the central administration. Li Jiangqian listened without much attention. It had to be said, Li Jiangxia's abilities were far from lacking. With Li Jiangqian's support behind him and capable men sent by the Li family, he had firmly subdued the disorganized forces of the eastern shore. The various families had pledged allegiance, and the direct descendants had been relocated to Milan. When his report was complete, Li Jiangliang and Li Jiangnian entered the hall one after another. Their elder brother swept his keen eyes across them. The one in front, Li Jiangliang, had bright golden eyes and a handsome, lively face. When he reached them, he bowed deeply and greeted his father with respect. There was nothing unusual about the brother's demeanor, and Li Jiangqian's gaze skimmed over his fourth brother, Li Jiangliang, before settling on the one behind, Li Jiangnian. The young man's pupils widened slightly. For the first time, he looked upon his brother not with calm scrutiny, but with visible astonishment. In fact, everyone in the hall, save for Li Xiaowei and Li Jiangnian himself, fell briefly silent in shock. His face bore pale eyebrows, high cheekbones, and a sharp chin. The skin on both cheeks was drawn taut. If the least handsome among the Jiang generation, Li Jianglong, could still be called broad-featured, then Li Jiangnian's face offered no redeeming traits at all. But Li Jiangqian was not one to judge by appearances. He had not studied his younger brother's features. He had been slightly shaken when he found the eyes beneath his lashes. His hand clenched, then slowly relaxed. They were a pair of lost, gray eyes. Li Zhongliang's voice still echoed through the hall as Li Xiaowei asked a few NTLE questions, yet few could focus on him any longer. Every gaze had turned to find Li Zhongyan's eyes. The boy was slow to notice, entirely unaware as he answered each question in confusion as he looked blankly at his brother. Li Xiaowei asked a few questions before finally asking, "Jiangnian, what stage is your cultivation now?" Li Jiangnian's eyes were uneven in size, giving him a faintly awkward appearance. Nervousness welled within him, and tears quickly filled his eyes as he choked out, embryonic breathing realm, second stage. He had only recently begun cultivation, and though his level was slightly below Li Zhongliang's, it was not bad, yet the hall fell silent. Li Zhongliang stood properly in front, his composure forming too stark a contrast. Li Xiaowei withdrew his gaze and said, "I gathered you all today first to ask about your cultivation and see your progress, and second to inform you that I will be entering seclusion, with a few instructions to leave behind." His cultivation had long been sufficient to challenge the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Since Li Ziming was now overseeing profound Peak Gates affairs, and the decision was made to abandon Shanji Prefecture, there was no reason to delay. He had resolved to enter closed-door cultivation immediately. He first looked toward Li Jiangqian and said, "Jiangqian, you've reached the 8th stage of the Qi cultivation realm and already have the foundation to attempt your breakthrough. For now, temper your cultivation and refine your spell arts. Continue managing affairs within the island. Your granduncle Cheng Huai will be cultivating, and Zhuliuo has taken charge of Qingdu. There are many family matters, so discuss them well with your uncle." Li Jiangqian quickly bowed in acknowledgement as his father continued, "Jianglong, your cultivation has advanced these past 2 years, and you've studied many profound Peak Gate spell arts. Go to the floating South Territory and take over the positions of Fei Qingyi and Li Anshuo. The two of them will be under your charge, and you will act under the orders of Elder Minggong." Chapter 11:28 Jiang II. Li Jiangxia quietly breathed a sigh of relief. He was currently overseeing the eastern shore under Milin Mountain's administration and had even established a palace there. In the future, he would be its superior. What he feared most was Li Jianglong being reassigned to Milin, which would have undone all his painstaking efforts. Li Jianglong accepted the order respectfully, showing no surprise. Li Anshuo's wife was of the Chen family, his maternal side, and he already held leverage over the man. Li Xiaowei was surely aware of that, and since Li Anshuo handled mortal matters in the floating south, assigning Li Jianglong there was only natural. After arranging matters for those two, Li Xiaowei said solemnly, "Jiangxia will continue to oversee the eastern shore. That area borders the wilderness, and stability there is crucial. Only you have the necessary experience among your brothers, so there will be no changes." Li Jiangxia quickly knelt in gratitude. By the time he rose, the Li family's influence had already shifted swiftly from several Foundation Establishment Realm elders to the younger generation of Qi Cultivation Realm cultivators. Li Xiaowei glanced around the hall with a faint smile, paused for a moment and said, "Zhuliuo will manage Qingdu, and Li Wen will return to the Jade Court. Only Milin remains without a governor. Do any of you have a recommendation?" Li Jiangqian immediately stepped forward and said respectfully, "Elder Dong He is well suited for the position." None of the brothers' faces changed, not even Li Jianglong, whose maternal side was from the Chen family. There was a reason for their calm. The elder held great authority, yet was utterly unyielding and harsh even toward his own kin. The Chen family feared him greatly and dared not treat him as an ally, making his appointment of little advantage to Li Jianglong. Li Jianglong then spoke, "I have been away from home for a long time and am unfamiliar with the family's recent changes, so I dare not make suggestions. However, this position is important and should be entrusted to a high-ranking Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator." Li Jiangxia spoke up next without hesitation. "The position of Milin is too valuable and should remain in the hands of upright members of our own family. Since it has long been vacant and several elders are absent from home, I believe it's best to leave it unfilled for now. We can instead assign a few respected elders to the palace as advisors to manage the eastern shore. With many people involved, opinions will differ, and it would be more convenient for elder brother to mediate between them." Li Xiaowei was dipping his vermilion brush in ink, drafting orders for his sons to assume their new posts. After listening to their words, not the slightest Ipple crossed his expression. He merely let out a quiet laugh. Everyone has his own agenda. For Li Jianqian, who had taken charge of the central island, stability was paramount. The last thing he wanted was an overbearing Millen Mountain master. A law-abiding qi cultivation realm elder suited his interests best, hence his immediate nomination of Chen Dong. Though Li Jiangxia's words sounded pleasant, in truth he merely wished to avoid a superior above him. Li Jianqian was far away on the lake, but the Millen master would be right beside him. Anyone assigned there would have to heed his influence, so leaving the post vacant was naturally most convenient. Only Li Jianglong, who was departing for floating south, would have no say in Millen's affairs. Yet for him, a strong foundation establishment realm cultivator entering that position would be ideal, since it would prevent his two brothers from gaining too much authority. Having heard all of this, Li Xiaowei understood each motive clearly and ordered. Qi Juyan of Changzhou has talent for governance, deep cultivation, and mastery of the arts. I'll let him take charge. Jiangliang shall also enter Millen to cultivate. He need not remain in the island all day. Li Jiangliang quickly bowed. Though clever, he was still young and did not grasp the full meaning of his father's decision. He smiled as he accepted the order. Only then did Li Xiaowei turn to his youngest, Li Jianyan, and sigh almost imperceptibly. As for Nyaner, stay here on the island and cultivate first. We will speak again once you reach Qi cultivation realm. You may all go. The brothers answered in unison and withdrew. Once they were outside the hall, Li Jianglong took Li Jiangliang by the hand, his face full of warmth as he said cheerfully, "Lianger, you're such an obedient child. Elder Qi is a direct descendant of Changzhou, so learn well from him." The Azure Pond Sect, Jiyushan Pavilion. Spring rain had just fallen, leaving the stone steps slick and glistening. Li Zijai, draped in a feathered robe, sat by a low table, pouring tea from a jade pot. A bright emerald hue rippled in the cup, releasing a refreshing fragrance. He smiled and said, "This is 100 longevity spring, brewed with the spring rain. My lady, please have a taste." The woman beside him gazed at him with smiling eyes, lifting the cup delicately for a sip. Li Zijai brewed another pot, pouring it into a separate cup, and spoke in a serious tone. "This one is called Awakening Warmth. It's a graded tea made from genuine Qi cultivation realm spirit items. Though it doesn't taste as pleasant, it calms the mind and steadies one's cultivation." Yang Xiaor took the cup and tasted it, her gaze still lingering on him as she smiled and said, "You've been in seclusion for so long, I missed you terribly." "You," Li Zijai chuckled softly. "For foundation establishment realm cultivators like us, a few months in seclusion feel like only a few hours, and yet you miss me already." Yang Xiaor sipped her tea. "Why not? Is that not allowed?" Li Zijai could not help but laugh, then grew serious as he said, "Your immortal foundation, the nurturing treasure vase, is formidable. Don't underestimate it. It's much like my family's radiant origin pass. The Yang family has secured a fine thing for you. You'd best focus on cultivating it well." Yang Xiaor hesitated slightly at the mention of the Yang family. Just then, someone walked up the mountain path. It was a round-faced young man in silver-white attire with a neat jade crown and a crimson brocade robe. Li Zijai's senior disciple, Quan Yuduan, was lively and prone to overreaction. He hurried forward and said anxiously, "Master, Tantai Jin has arrived with Si Tongyi. Dharma protector Wusho has gone to greet them. They're already halfway up the mountain." Yang Xiaor immediately rose from her seat, while Li Zijai sighed helplessly and shook his head. "So that's all it was. Yuduan, your temperament is still lacking. You act purely on whim. You're no heir of the Wang or Zai families, nor a true heir of a golden core cultivator. What makes you think you can act so willfully? Your junior has already gone down the mountain for training, but until you mend your temper, you will not be allowed to leave." Quan Yuduan quickly restrained himself and nodded obediently. Life in Jiyushan Pavilion was dull, and he had long yearned to go out, so he replied at once, "Yes, master, I will remember your teaching." He then quickly withdrew. A man in a magnificent crown soon appeared ascending the path. His cultivation was at the late stage of the foundation establishment realm, his bearing graceful and refined. A short sword hung at his waist, and his face bore a polite smile as he greeted, "Greetings, Pavilion Master." Chapter 1129, Market Site Designation, I. Tantai Jin was also a direct descendant of a Purple Mansion realm cultivator, since the Si family were few in number. Si Yuanli had appointed him to handle sect affairs after entering seclusion, as a way to conceal the traces of their usurpation. Although it appeared as if he had been chosen for his talent, he was, in truth, another member of the Si family. Li Zijai invited him to sit. Tantai Jin accepted the tea, took a sip, savored it for a moment, and smiled. Excellent tea. As the elder brother of the Purple Mansion Realm Taoist master, Li Zijai was qualified to sit and share tea with a direct descendant of a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator like Tantai Jin. Though Si Tongyi's cultivation was modest, he was the most outstanding among the younger generation of the Si family and likewise had the right to sit. Yet, he was modest and respectful by nature, so he chose to stand aside and observe proper junior etiquette. After exchanging a few polite words, Li Zijai asked, "My lord, what instructions do you bring to Jiyushan Pavilion today?" Tantai Jin quickly waved his hand and shook his head several times. "I wouldn't dare call it an instruction. There are merely one or two matters that trouble the pavilion master." Setting down his teacup, he spoke earnestly. "There is a promising youth in the Si family who has only just entered the Qi cultivation realm. His innate ability is extraordinary, and his understanding of the spell arts far surpasses his peers. Tongyi has observed him closely and fears that our own guidance might dull such a gem, so he hopes to place the boy under your tutelage. If you would not find it a burden, we ask that you grant him an audience." As soon as Tantai Jin finished speaking, Si Tongyi stepped forward, producing a small wooden box which he respectfully presented with both hands. "The pavilion master's mastery of the spell arts is divine. Our family dares not presume to seek your Dao lineage. This heavenly glow Dao lineage technique, the five-colored boundless sword art, is a fourth-grade ancient spell art acquired by one of our Taoist masters in the northern regions long ago. No one has succeeded in cultivating it for 100 years. Only you are worthy of wielding it." Li Wushao, standing nearby, froze for a moment at Si Tongyi's words. "The pavilion master's mastery of the spell arts is divine. Our family dares not presume to seek your Dao lineage," and almost missed the rest. Inwardly, he could not help but sigh. This damn Si family's direct descendant. Things go smoothly when you have a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator standing behind you. Li Zijai, however, found the situation somewhat strange. "They actually wish to place themselves under my mountain gate." Still, the five-colored boundless sword art was deeply tempting. Though its name suggested a sword art, it was in truth a spell art closely tied to sword cultivation. The Li family also possessed a similar manual, the Armor Cycle Soul-Refining Halberd art, which leaned even more purely toward spell arts. Li Zijai had long been searching for a spell art of this type. His rainbow-pierced skyway directly enhanced spell art mastery, and with his innate ability in sword cultivation, this spell art would yield entirely different results in his hands. Yet no matter how tempted he felt, his expression betrayed little desire. Accepting this disciple would undeniably deepen his ties with the Si family, and he was uncertain of his younger brother's position. Thus he could not give an immediate answer and merely replied, "Tongyi, you are too courteous. The matter of accepting a disciple depends on the bond between master and pupil. I would not wish to misguide your family's prodigy. Such things cannot be settled with a simple nod. We must first choose an auspicious day, meet the candidate, and test his aptitude." Tantai Jin nodded, understanding that Li Zijai intended to consult Li Ziming first. He then asked, "What arrangements does the pavilion master propose?" Li Zijai replied, "Send the child here first so I can see if our fates align. I will select 2 Taoist texts and test him on a few points to see whether his fate with me truly exists." Both men knew perfectly well what fate implied. After a brief exchange, they set the matter aside, and Tantai Jin said, "Chaos has erupted across Profound Peak Gate's territory since Senior Chengxi's death. Shanji Prefecture now faces enemies on all sides, and demonic cultivators have multiplied. I've heard that the Profound Peak Gate's disciples have fled into the wilderness. Without their protection, the riverlands in that region are open to be infiltrated by the Eastern Sea's devil cultivators. With the turmoil in Shanji Prefecture, devil cultivators and demonic creatures might pass through our Azure Pond sect territory. We intend to strengthen our defenses and may dispatch several teams to the area. Pavilion Master, if any of your disciples need experience, they could accompany the expedition." Li Zijai responded casually, and they shared another cup of tea. Both were preparing to take their leave when Li Zijai, lost in thought, suddenly asked, "I wonder, what is the child's name and age, and what Dao lineage or cultivation method does he practice?" "Ah, I nearly forgot to mention that." Si Tongyi's expression grew solemn as he replied, "The child is of the Zunzi generation, with the given name Hui. He is only 18 this year and cultivates the empty response dispersion. His immortal foundation is naturally attuned to spell arts, and once he reaches foundation establishment realm, his mastery of spell arts will advance even further." Li Zijai nodded thoughtfully, then instructed Li Wushao to escort the guests out. Though the old serpent's bloodline was humble, his current position and late foundation establishment realm cultivation commanded respect, and even Si Tongyi greeted him with a smile. Once outside Jiushan Pavilion, Tantai Jin sighed and said, "Tongyi, Li Zijai doesn't seem very moved. We'll have to wait for Taoist Master Zheajing's reply." Si Tongyi nodded silently, his expression complicated. Things were no longer as they had been when he and Li Zijai called each other brother. He sighed and said, "In the old days, when Yuan Tuan went to Moongaze Lake, I had just begun cultivating at the peak. The entire Li family came out to greet him, and Li Zijai was still a nameless figure. Back then, Yuan Tuan would smile and even bow when he saw me. But now that Zheajing has achieved greatness, even I must speak politely to the youngest of the Li family juniors, this Li Jianqian, or whatever his name is. Who could have predicted such a turn?" Tantai Jin merely shook his head in reply. "Such is the way of the world. Forget Yuan Tuan, think of the mighty Yuan family in its prime, lords of the Yanyang Dao lineage. What have they become now? Even Yuan Chengzhao must live under our shadow. Does his bitterness matter? What difference would it make?" Silence reigned as they rode the wind away. Finally, Tantai Jin sighed in regret. "Our family's Taoist master once had intentions for the Shanji prefecture lands as well. Unfortunately, Changxi died too early, leaving many unprepared. Taoist master Yi Hui ended up seizing the advantage. From the looks of it now, the nearby factions will soon divide that territory completely." Moongaze Lake. Bright decorations adorned the hall inside the island's small pavilion, and many plum trees had been planted. Yet the season had not come, leaving only a few bare branches stretching across the courtyard as cultivators moved about in all directions. A cultivator clad in a crimson robe descended from the main hall. He had a tiger's beard, a square jaw, and a sturdy frame. His piercing eyes radiated such power that one could hardly look away. Ding Weizhang's injuries were now nearly healed. Since he had been personally mentioned by the Taoist master, he had been granted a true profound heart-cleansing pill, a medicine capable of overcoming karma. It harmonized perfectly with his immortal foundation, the Palace Sun Tiger, which specialized in overcoming yin and karma. Together, they complemented each other, unleashing the pill's full potential. Thus, while most of those around him were still nursing their wounds, Ding Weizhang, who had been among the most seriously injured, had already left the mountains and regained nearly 80% of his strength. Even Li Chenghui, whose strength had remained largely intact during the battle, was still in seclusion to recuperate. As he entered the hall, a servant came forward to report, "My lord, Wang Kuan of the Floating South requests an audience." Ding Weizhang showed no surprise. Taking his seat at the head of the hall, he said, "Let him in." Chapter 1130, Market Site Designation, II. A moment later, a man with his hair bound and a sword strapped to his back entered the hall and bowed respectfully. "This junior, Wang Kuan of the Floating South Wang family, greets my lord." The cultivators from the Jiangbei branch, having recently joined the Li family, had naturally banded together for protection. The Floating South faction had the largest numbers, most of them trained under Buzhai, and they proudly regarded themselves as disciples of the Floating South lineage. Another faction consisted of cultivators from the Hidden East. They consisted mainly of surrendered generals and the old families pressed into service within Milan. They were led by Mai Ashui. Their numbers were few, and their cultivation modest. Since Mai Ashui was on friendly terms with Buzhai, these cultivators also gathered under the Jiangbei banner to associate with the Floating South cultivators, though they were still considered somewhat inferior. Wang Kuan's Wang family hailed originally from Jiangbei but strictly speaking, belonged to the Hidden East lineage. Fortunately, they had relocated to Floating South years ago. Ever astute, Wang Kuan had left Shijing Mountain few months earlier and immediately began introducing himself as a member of the Floating South Wang family. He first paid respects to Buzhai and then came to meet Ding Weizhang on his second visit. Though loyal and upright, Ding Weizhang had never shown much interest in factional matters. Yet, given his current position, he had naturally become the de facto leader recognized by both Jiangbei factions. Thus, Wang Kuan's visit came as no surprise to him. Wang Kuan came with tact and purpose, and Ding Weizhang had long wanted to see him. The reason was simple. Ding Weizhang's absolute loyalty lay with Li Ziming, and Wang Kuan had already earned Li Ziming's favor. Rumor even had it that he might be promised an essence-gathering pill. Naturally, Ding Weizhang had a high regard for him, and he asked, "Kuan, there's no need for formality. Have your supplies and cultivation quarters been arranged?" Wang Kuan hurried to reply. After listening, Ding Weizhang realized that the arrangements were of the highest standard within the family. He nodded silently, further convinced of the young man's favored status, and asked, "Did Senior explain the family's affairs to you clearly? Are you familiar with everything?" The decline of the old Legend branch was now unmistakable. The once prosperous Huyu faction had collapsed overnight following Nsiwe's capture. Meanwhile, the Milan and Nanjing factions were growing in power, leaving the foreign Jiangbei group in an awkward position. One misstep could easily offend the wrong people. Even if Gbuzhai had not explained all this to Wang Quan, a few days of careful inquiry would have given him a fair idea. Nonetheless, it was always better to confirm, so he replied, "My lord, I understand everything clearly." Ding Weizhang nodded but still offered a word of caution. The old retainers of Lijiang may no longer be prominent, but they still deserve respect. As for the disputes between the Fei family and the Floating South cultivators, it's best that you stay clear of them. Focus on your cultivation. Wang Quan understood exactly what he was referring to. Over the past decade, the Fei family of the Northern Shore had accumulated deep blood feuds with the Floating South faction. Many Floating South cultivators had originally been from small northern families that defected to the Floating Cloud Cave. Though both sides now served under the same banner, the old grudges and resentments could not be easily washed away. However, the Wang family had come from the Hidden East and had never been involved in those conflicts, leaving their name untainted. Wang Quan replied, "The oldest young master and the family head both instructed me not to leave the island before reaching the Foundation establishment realm." The moment he heard this, Ding Weizhang immediately understood. Wang Quan carries the hopes of the Floating South faction. They fear he might be targeted by the Northern faction. In truth, Li Jianqian did worry that Wang Quan might be harmed by the cultivators of Capital Immortal Dao. The matter of Mount Zioshi could only proceed with Wang Quan's involvement. If anything happened to him, it might be a long time before another suitable candidate appeared. Though both men had misunderstood the other's reasoning, they each had a perfectly reasonable explanation. They conversed for some time. Ding Weizhang listened and nodded repeatedly, realizing that Wang Quan had already arranged everything from the island's interior to its shoreline. His preparations were more meticulous than Ding Weizhang himself could have managed. As their talk grew more congenial, Ding Weizhang rose despite Wang Quan's polite refusals and personally escorted him out, saying with a smile, "With a family head like you, the Floating South Wang family is truly blessed beyond measure." "It is only thanks to the Taoist master's favor," replied Wang Quan. As they stepped outside the hall, they saw a young man in a dark crimson robe waiting at the foot of the steps. Ding Weizhang paused briefly, then bowed respectfully as he said, "My respects, young master." Li Jianqian smiled as he approached, giving Wang Quan a courteous nod. Understanding his place, Wang Quan excused himself and withdrew. Ding Weizhang quickly invited Li Jianqian inside, but the youth did not state his purpose right away. Instead, he said with a light smile, "Lord Ding, what do you think of Wang Quan?" Ding Weizhang's expression turned solemn as he replied in a steady tone, "This man is unlikely to remain a small fish in a shallow pond." "Lo!" Li Jianqian prompted further, and Ding Weizhang continued, "Though not young, his cultivation is steady and refined and his mana pure. He dresses plainly and carries himself with composure. The cord on his Dharma sword is frayed, and calluses have formed on his palms from constant seal practice. His brow bears the air of clear wind and bright moon, and he's upright and untainted. Even when bowing, he maintains dignity without arrogance. If he acts decisively, knowing when to advance or retreat, he will surely rise above his peers if given a proper opportunity." Li Jianqian pondered for a moment and asked, "You seem to think highly of him, Lord Ding." Though his tone held mild surprise, his thoughts were already forming opportunity. The Dao lineage of Mount Zioshi is a fated chance, unshakable as iron. Could fate truly be moving in his favor? Perhaps I should reward him with resources, treasures, and favor from the family's ladies. Yet as that thought arose, a sudden chill struck him, and he wondered, how can I be sure that this impulse to favor him isn't itself born from his fate's fortune? Is it fate manipulating men, or men shaping fate? The reflection lasted only an instant, yet Wang Quan's name was etched deeply in his heart. A faint smile crossed his lips as he spoke. "I came here today because there is a matter that requires your assistance." "Please give your orders, young master." Ding Weizhang immediately nodded and looked at Li Jianqian, who had assumed a serious expression. Li Jianqian said, "I received orders from the Taoist master some time ago to construct a tower, a jade court, and a market district. The Jade Court has been completed, and the tower is nearly finished. Only the market remains without a proper overseer. The Taoist master returned briefly at midnight. I went to Zhaijing Mountain to consult with him, and he personally chose the location, which is between Milan Mountain and the eastern shore, on the old grounds of the former Milan prefecture. It lies at the convergence of 5 earth veins, making it an ideal place to establish a market. That area, however, lacks a foundation establishment realm cultivator to oversee it. I've consulted the elders, and only you are available at present. It would be best if you went to take charge, manage the manpower, and see the market's construction completed. Ding Huizeng nodded without hesitation and replied, I shall carry out the Taoist master's command. Li Zhongqian withdrew several jade slips from his sleeve, along with a command token, and handed them to him while explaining, the earth veins in that region have some defects. Time has healed many of them, but a few points still need repair. Take this command token and have the cultivators of Profound Peak Gate handle the restoration. Defects in earth veins were rare, and few Taoist records contained methods for repairing them. Most of the time, they simply waited for nature to mend them over time. Fortunately, the Profound Peak Gate cultivators now served under the Li family, and they were experts in such matters. Still, Ding Huizeng found it curious, his brow furrowing slightly until Li Zhongqian continued, that location once belonged to the Yu family's market. They had good foresight. The spot is the most suitable site along the entire eastern shore. But during the great family conflicts of the past, the market was destroyed, the Jade True Formation shattered, and the earth veins beneath were damaged, leading to the troubles we face today. A calm smile appeared on his face as he instructed, I'll ensure you have enough manpower. The formation masters I've hired will also arrive on schedule. Once you reach the eastern shore, all the cultivators around the 5 mountain peaks will fall under your command. Simply find my younger brother and tell him it is the Taoist master's order. Show him this command token, and he will not object. Ding Huizeng bowed deeply and said respectfully, your subordinate obeys. Chapter 1131, A Cup of Tea to Divide the Peak. Xuanmiao Temple. A steady spring drizzle fell in sheets, as several disciples within the temple busied themselves with gathering qi on the wind. Their bodies glided through the rain like fish in the sea, the pale green light in their hands continuously collecting and condensing into streams of qi. A middle-aged layman with a square face and plain robes lifted the hem of his garment as he walked along the slick stone steps in wooden clogs. His movements resembled those of an ordinary mortal without cultivation. Upon reaching the courtyard, he pushed open the door and called out with a smile, Zhaijing, please come in. A Taoist master in white robes embroidered with golden patterns entered. His features were refined, his face youthful, and though his eyes held no malice, the calm sweep of his gaze was enough to make the surrounding disciples lower their heads in unison. Li Ziming followed him up the steps and replied, this spring rain is rare. I see your disciples are all gathering qi. It seems they look forward to this day each year. No wonder I haven't seen Keixin around. Sumian greeted him with a light smile and said, Keixin left long ago. Matters at the Eastern Sea are troublesome, and he must stay there to oversee them. As for this spring rain, we gather it every year, yet it's never enough. Sometimes, I even have to refine it myself with divine arts. He chuckled softly and continued, your family has quite a number of cultivators. If you're willing, perhaps they could help me collect some from the lake as well. This old fox never misses a chance to pluck a feather from a passing goose, thought Li Ziming. He smiled and replied, that's easily done. As long as you show us the qi-gathering method, my family's cultivators can gather some as well and exchange it at your temple for spirit items. I'll have it sent to your esteemed family later. Sumian spoke with complete ease, showing no fear of the qi-gathering method being linked. Li Ziming, for his part, was equally unbothered. The Li family lacked many things, but cultivators were not one of them. There were always idle ones to spare, and picking up a side trade was no loss. Li Ziming let out a quiet sigh. In just a few short days, they've already erected formations atop Senior Changxi's old mountain. The old Taoist master truly works quickly. It seems this spirit mountain will prove quite useful indeed. Sumian smiled without answering as they entered the courtyard together. There, a woman in a yellow silk robe sat sipping tea. A faint touch of blue adorned the corner of her eyes. It was Taoist Master Tinglin of the Purple Smoke lineage. Unsurprised, Li Ziming greeted her politely and took a seat. Earlier that morning, Li Ziming had received word from Sumian that they would be discussing the matter of the Profound Peak Gate. He knew then that Sumian would not be alone in Xuanmiao Temple. At least Tinglin or Ling Mei would be present, or perhaps even Yi Hui himself. Taking the offered cup, Li Ziming chose not to speak in circles and asked directly, "How does fellow Taoist Sumian propose to handle this matter?" Sumian nodded with a smile and replied, "This matter should have been resolved long ago. We delayed it only to preserve a bit of face for Profound Peak Gate. Now that Tinglin has come to visit and raised the issue, I invited you over to settle it together." Li Ziming smiled and said, "Has fellow Taoist Yi Hui been here already?" Sumian hesitated slightly, and Tinglin took over the conversation, replying, "He came once, stated his terms clearly, and then asked for your presence." She glanced at Li Ziming gently and said softly, "It is better to resolve enmity than deepen it. We are all Purple Mansion realm cultivators. The juniors beneath us may bicker over this treasure or that, and perhaps some pride gets involved, but there's no need for real hatred. It's fine to play a game of chess, just don't let the fire ignite." Regardless of whether the Li family and the capital Immortal Dao were truly at odds, Tinglin was clearly mediating on her gate's behalf. She was likely the one managing the affair from start to end. Li Ziming understood her goodwill and naturally had to show respect to this Taoist master of the Purple Smoke Gate. He said solemnly, "Fellow Taoist Tinglin is absolutely right. I crossed hands with Senior Yi Hui once or twice, contending a little between Jiangnan and Jiangbei, but it never reached the point of true enmity. This will be easy to resolve." Sumian's influence was clearly not as great as Tinglin's, but the old Taoist master cared little about that. So long as he could calm these two who kept clashing and avoid getting dragged into trouble himself, that would be success enough. Sumian asked, "I heard that you went to investigate the site. Were you able to discover anything?" Li Ziming nodded. "I had a Taoist master divine the matter. Guest cultivator Fu En is inside the mountain gate. The one who died earlier was Kong Heiying, but his soul lamp had been tampered with by Taoist master Chengxi, so it hadn't truly been his for quite some time. As for Kong Tingyun, it's uncertain where she is attempting her breakthrough." Hearing that he had consulted a Taoist master, Sumian couldn't help but take a sip of tea, while Tinglin smiled and said, "That makes things simple. I have a friend cultivating in the vicinity of Shiki named Zhugong. She happens to be interested in settling there. With that, the whole matter will be resolved." Sumian raised an eyebrow and asked, "Tinglin, if your friend takes this place, aren't you afraid that Kong Tingyun might succeed in her breakthrough and return seeking revenge?" "Listen to me first," Tinglin blinked playfully. This Taoist master from the Qi region possessed a charm distinct from the graceful refinement of Jiangnan beauty. She said with a smile, "I'll make things clear with Yi Hui. Zheajing is willing to yield Profound Peak Gate and allow him to enter the mountain gate to conduct his own search and raid. After he's done searching and taking whatever he wants, he may move a few mountains if he likes, but the gate itself must be returned to me. When Yi Hui brings people to attack the mountain, Zheajing will resist a few times, collect the 100 Mountain Spirit-containing formation, then feign defeat, suffer minor injuries, and retreat, leaving the mountain gate behind along with a few prepared spirit items. Once Yi Hui finishes searching and taking what he desires, I'll have my friend come seize the mountain, forcing Yi Hui to give it up naturally." She extended her hand and pressed her fingers down one by one as she counted. "You Munges will gain the formation, the Dao lineage of Profound Peak Gate, and the people's loyalty. Isn't that far better than guarding one patch of land and inviting jealousy from all sides? Even if in the 1 in 10,000 chance someone truly succeeds in a breakthrough, Zheajing will have every justification and even a debt of gratitude owed to him. As for the capital Immortal Dao, they'll have seized the spirit items and cultivation methods, moved away the mountains Yi Hui desires, and eliminated a long-standing enemy. Though he won't gain Shanji Prefecture or Profound Peak Gate, it'll be enough face to save. As for where Kong Tingyun has gone, that will be his own problem. Things have come this far. Would he still fear offending Profound Peak Gate?" She sipped her tea unhurriedly and said calmly, "Yi Hui values the spirit lands of the mountains in Profound Peak Gate, not its geographical location. If he really devours the entire area, he'll end up controlling an enormous territory across the river. It'll be hard to manage from end to end and far too ostentatious. It wouldn't necessarily bring him good fortune. As for Taoist Master Zhugong, she'll have rightfully taken this mountain from the hands of the enemy and won't bear a grudge from the Profound Peak Gate. On the contrary, she can extend grace by welcoming its cultivators and making use of them. She can build bonds of gratitude and kinship. Even if someone truly returns after a breakthrough, what could they say against her? There might even be a chance to turn foes into friends. As for me and Taoist Master Kilo, we won't need to trouble ourselves with your disputes anymore." By the time she finished speaking, her cup of tea was empty, and the game board before her was complete. Every Purple Mansion Realm cultivator present had received their share of benefit. The courtyard fell into a brief silence as Sumian stared in mild astonishment before sighing. I have long heard that the Orthodox Dao excel at the art of maneuvering, and that the Purple Mansion Realm cultivators of the mainland can profit and avoid danger unseen. It is indeed true. Taoist Master, your stratagem is truly breathtaking. As Sumian began to heap on the flattery, Tinglin shook her head, her expression carrying a trace of complexity and unease as she smiled faintly. You flatter me, old Taoist Master. I've merely observed a few Purple Mansion Realm contests over the past few years. Compared to the likes of Shooting, Qiushui, Yuanziu, Chengxiao, Tianyuan, or even Kai Wei, my methods are nothing but petty tricks. Chapter 1132, Entrustment I. After Tinglin and her companion conversed, Li Ziming remained silent. Neither of them cared whether the one occupying the mountain was Fu En or Kang Heiying. As long as they followed the arrangement, everything about Profound Peak Gate was already settled. Tinglin saw the situation clearly. The Purple Smoke Gate was weak at the moment, and taking over the Profound Peak Gate's territory would bloat their domain. Drawing in a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator, however, was a far better strategy. It was the scheme Tinglin had long been putting together. With a charming smile, Tinglin had mediated on behalf of the Purple Smoke Gate with only a few effortless words. Empty-handed, she had managed to secure Profound Peak Gate's mountain gate for free, while Li Ziming even had to thank her for it. Li Ziming understood her plan perfectly well, yet this Purple Smoke Gate Taoist master had come personally under the guise of offering advice. What room did he truly have to refuse? As a Taoist master of the Green Pine Supreme Yang Dao lineage, Tinglin had taken the initiative to mediate this matter. Her tone seemed amicable, and the favor she extended was considerable. Sumian, meanwhile, either echoed her words or nodded in agreement. His flattery nearly reached the heavens, and his stance was obvious beyond doubt. Regardless of the Li family's own interests, the Purple Smoke Gate intended to support Taoist Master Zhugong. If Li Ziming voiced any objection, he would not only offend Tinglin, but also obstruct the Purple Smoke Gate's agenda. Even the peace-seeking Xuanmiao Temple would take issue with him, while Yi Hui would probably burst out laughing. The spirit items within Profound Peak Gate are already scarce. Even how much my family takes and how much Yi Hui takes remains ambiguous. Since Kang Heiying is absent from the mountain, Yi Hui is actually the one losing the most in this plan. It is very likely that he only agreed under pressure. It should be noted that when Tinglin mentioned the capital Immortal Dao earlier, she only remarked, "It'll be enough face to save." Clearly, she did not think much of that sect. My family bears the name of a righteous Jiangnan family, with the Zyro family watching from the side and the Azure Pond sect left as a fallback. Tinglin is willing to give me some face, but if it were Yi Hui in my place, even with his higher cultivation, he would have little to say. Since the Purple Smoke Gate wanted Profound Peak Gate while also needing to account to Yi Hui, Fu En was doomed. Li Ziming could only say, "This matter is easy to settle, but what about the Sword Gate to the east? How will they respond?" After all, the Profound Peak Gate bordered the Sword Gate. Though the Sword Gate had already taken the lands by Lake Xian, and Sumian had even gone to apologize, the matter still required a statement from them. Li Ziming's question was not unexpected, and Tinglin replied, "It's fine. Taoist Master Ling Mei has already said that the Sword Gate will no longer interfere in the affairs of the Profound Peak Gate." Li Ziming had nothing more to say. He sipped his tea and said, "The grand formation of the Purple Mansion Realm will be troublesome to relocate. Taoist Master, I must trouble you with this matter." Tinglin knew that he had agreed, yet she still lowered her head in thought. What Li Ziming meant by retrieving the grand formation was for her, Tinglin, to act within the Great Void and take it away herself. Yet to outsiders unaware of the arrangement behind Profound Peak Gate's division, it might appear as though she had seized the formation amidst the chaos. Li Ziming had no knowledge of formations whatsoever, so such a request was reasonable. Tinglin thought to herself, so be it. Those in the Great Void are only watching. Thinking it through, this is understandable. She nodded, and with that, the matter was settled. Li Ziming took out the secret incantation for the Profound Peak Gate's formation plate, along with a jade pendant, and handed them over. Tinglin said, "In that case, let me make the arrangements first. The matter will resolve itself within a few months. Once it is concluded, I shall go to the lake and rearrange the grand formation." It was inconvenient to bring up anything about pill refinement before Sumian, so she only mentioned formations. The elder Taoist beside her listened with a smile and said, Now that this matter has been settled, I can finally enter seclusion. Many of my affairs have been delayed because of the profound peak gate. Spring rain continued to patter outside as the three of them drank tea and conversed pleasantly. Sumian lifted his chin and said, I have a friend cultivating in Yan State who mentioned an interesting rumor. It was said that the tribes of Mobai have grown increasingly active in recent years. Several great families have united, commanding 100,000 bowmen, and even produced cultivators of the Purple Mansion realm. Tinglin showed little surprise and said, the Zhao Emperor has lost his influence and is unable to even leave his own palace. It is no wonder he has little control over his northern homeland. After 100 years, unrest was inevitable. I have a friend who has long struggled to acquire unified qi and required a contest of national fate. Upon hearing this news a few months ago, he was overjoyed and went there at once. It's said many ancient ruins have emerged, and there may even be a fate bearer among them. Li Ziming quietly sipped his tea as he thought, so it's only the two of you who have all these friends. I've only just become a Taoist master, and I've barely left Zhongnan a few times. The other two were unaware of his thoughts. Sumian had not raised the topic without reason and continued, since there is said to be a fate bearer, have you gone to see for yourself? Could it be the reincarnation of a saintly Taoist master? He was of course referring to Zaipai, his words carrying a hint of probing. Taoist Master Tinglin, however, responded without hesitation, smiling as she said, how could she end up in that place as another's pawn? Senior, you worry too much. Besides, my Purple Smoke Gate still has an elder at the peak of the Purple Mansion realm. Though his whereabouts are uncertain, he has gone to take a look. If it truly were so, he would have brought them back long ago. Her tone was smooth and natural, showing no hint of hesitation. It sounded as though the missing Purple Mansion realm cultivator of the Purple Smoke Gate truly was merely wandering as she claimed, and would occasionally return to the sect to cultivate in seclusion. Tinglin spoke as though she had personally met him recently. Taoist Master Sumian nodded repeatedly, and Tinglin went on. After all, the elder is advanced in age and has been busy settle. In his own affairs, he is rarely seen nowadays. In the end, such matters will fall to us juniors. Taoist Master Sumian quickly said, I once cultivated near the Eastern Sea and met that elder around Quinee. We exchanged a few words and I received his guidance. The insights I gained were immeasurable and my gratitude boundless. If someday fate allows, I hope you will summon me to pay my respects. Taoist Master Tinglin remained calm, simply nodding in acknowledgement. She and Li Ziming took their leave soon after, as Sumian escorted them out of Xuanmiao Temple. The courtyard was left with nothing but the soft patter of spring rain. 15 minutes later, Sumian returned by tearing through the great void. He had a pensive look as he sat down on his meditation cushion and murmured, if Elderwin truly returned to the sect often, he would have made his stance clear the moment he heard of my sect's founding. The Quinee incident is something Tinglin could not possibly be unaware of, meaning she hasn't seen him for at least 16 or 17 years, whether he has perished or vanished. As long as he is not present, using the Essence Stone Devil Fetus will be much safer. Chapter 1133, Entrustment II. As Li Ziming left the Xuanmiao Temple and stepped into the Great Void, Tinglin traversed alongside him, clearly lingering on purpose. The woman smiled, I'll still have to trouble you with the pills afterward. Li Ziming waved his hand and replied, please don't say that, Taoist Master. You've already taken time out of your busy schedule to handle my family's affairs. Zheajing is deeply grateful. Sweet words cost nothing and required no spirit stones. After Li Ziming flattered her with a few phrases, Tinglin asked, since this formation uses profound peak gates formation as its base, I'll help modify it a little. Still, I should provide some compensation for Zheajing. The matter of pill refinement had long been settled. As long as more than 3 pills were successfully refined, the rest would belong to Li Ziming. He was fairly confident he could achieve that, and even hire a Purple Mansion Realm Formation Master to assist, making it a deal in his favor. Yet he still sighed and said, I wouldn't dare accept your items beforehand. If the pills fail to form, it would be a disgrace. I'd be too ashamed to face you. Tinglin clearly found such an outcome distasteful. Still, she didn't believe Li Ziming was capable of completely wasting a portion of origin water. Forcing a smile, she replied, then please let me know in advance, Taoist friend. I'll be away during this period to make some arrangements. I'd hate to keep you waiting unnecessarily. Li Ziming could tell that Tinglin was a cultivator who preferred her plans to be orderly and precise, so he said, I can't decide on a time just yet, but I'm still missing a suitable bright Yang Dharma artifact to use as a spirit embryo, preferably an ancient Dharma artifact. Do you have any arrangements for that? Oh, Tinglin thought for a moment and nodded. That's no trouble at all. I'll pick out a few Dharma artifacts from the Purple Smoke Gates collection and bring them for Zheajing to choose from. As for those ancient Dharma artifacts, I'll have to inquire more carefully. The request was minor, but Li Ziming had plans of his own. He wouldn't rely solely on Tinglin to search. He also intended to write to the Azure Pond sect, consult the Sword Gate, and even have Kui Juyan send a letter back home. The reason he made matters so complicated wasn't just to widen his pool of Dharma artifacts. Having encountered so many Purple Mansion Realm cultivators, he had long since become wary. I'll be using a Bright Yang Dharma artifact to refine my spirit embryo. If it happens to be a Bright Yang Ancient Dharma artifact, all the better. But since this will become my Purple Mansion Realm spirit artifact in the future, how could I let others so easily know its form and function? Even at the Foundation Establishment realm, that would be dangerous. I must shroud it in layers of misdirection, so no one can tell which artifact will serve as my spirit embryo. As he pondered, he asked, the 100 Mountain spirit-containing formation is excellent, but when you reconstruct it during the relocation, could you make it appear as a different spirit formation instead? It can have comparable power, or even be slightly weaker, so long as it differs enough to confuse others. After all, the 100 Mountain spirit-containing formation was originally something belonging to Profound Peak Gate. If it were to be moved intact and placed on Pingya Island, anyone passing by would immediately recognize it. Moreover, there were still many from Profound Peak Gate. How would they feel when they saw their gate's grand formation displayed so openly on the island? The first issue was reputation. It simply would not look good. The second was danger. It was easy to foresee that the Profound Peak Gate lineage would soon be scattered across the land. The Li family held one portion of its heritage, while Yi Hui, Zhugong, Sumian, and even Tinglin all possessed fragments of its knowledge. If any of them had records of the formation's core structure, wouldn't that invite disaster? Li Ziming had no wish to become another Fei family. Oh, if Li Ziming's earlier request had been simple, this later one was somewhat troublesome. Tinglin hesitated. Purple Mansion Realm grand formations are carefully designed, and each node is arranged through meticulous study. Altering even one point requires adjustments throughout the entire formation, and factoring in the terrain would only multiply the effort involved. Li Ziming smiled and said, the pill refinement will take 5 or 6 years anyway. You could use that time to make some adjustments to the formation. It doesn't need to be completely modified, just enough to make it look different on the surface and a few key points altered. He shifted his tone and sighed. Since the Profound Peak Gate lineage has been scattered, when your fellow Taoists visit in the future, I might even have to personally send some of their cultivators back. Many of them are intimately familiar with the 100 Mountain spirit-containing formation. My family has no wish to leave behind any future troubles. By bringing up Zhugong, Li Ziming had made his point subtly but effectively. Tinglin paused, realizing that he had given her ample respect and freedom to act, and said, very well, I'll take charge of it and make the necessary changes when I have time in the coming years. With their agreement settled, the two went their separate ways. Li Ziming tore open the Great Void and flew for a while before returning to his own territory. He reappeared atop Zheajing Mountain, where the weather was clear, the lake calm, and the blossoms scattered across the bright, sunlit slopes. As was his habit, he first retrieved the profound pattern bottle from the Earth Fiend's spring and began refining it. The fire baleful chi within had accumulated to a dense level, making it increasingly difficult to refine. Yet with a stir of his valley wind-leading fire, the refinement proceeded effortlessly. The fire baleful chi within the bottle had reached a level no Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator could touch. Only a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator capable of wielding divine abilities could continue refining it. Li Ziming estimated that in another 10 years, even those without the fire virtue divine ability would find it impossible to refine. But with his valley wind-leading fire, the difficulty of the refinement was utterly effortless and the speed nearly unbelievable. Li Ziming inspected the bottle. A faint crimson pattern, like a rising flame, had begun to appear upon its surface. Yet despite all his refinement, it remained at the level of the Foundation Establishment Realm and was far from capable of threatening a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator. The profound pattern bottle's material is extraordinary, but it shows no sign of reaching perfection. What it gains is only brute strength, not refined wonder. The gap between Foundation Establishment Realm and Purple Mansion Realm is far too vast. Sometimes the issue isn't whether one can wound the opponent, but whether one can even strike them. Once they draw a Dharma artifact and flee into the Great Void, what use is all that power? Still, with the profound pattern bottle firmly in his grasp, Li Ziming felt no fear. He simply hoped that each time he refined it, he would continue to sense its unending potential. After tossing the small bottle back into the fire-baleful Qi, he reappeared atop the mountain. White blossoms carpeted the ground all around him, though none dared fall upon the spot where Li Ziming usually sat. They only circled around him, forming a ring. The tea upon the stone table remained unfinished. Lifting his brows, he noticed a jade court guard waiting respectfully at the foot of the steps. The man wore white armor and was stationed permanently on Zhaijing Mountain. His surname was Du, and was a distant cousin by strict relation. His father, Du Yi, had once been one of Li Ziming's father's most trusted aides. The Du family had declined in recent years, and Li Xiaowei had sent him here more out of sentiment and charity than necessity. Li Ziming merely asked, "What is it?" Having served as a guard for a year, Court Guard Du had long grown accustomed to Li Ziming's unpredictable comings and goings, yet he still flinched in surprise. Bowing quickly, he replied, reporting to the Taoist master. The oldest young master came by earlier. He said he has an urgent matter to report. "Send him in." Li Ziming sat down and began reading through the pill formula for the heavenly quintessence-expelling pill. Before long, Li Jiangqian came up, holding a letter in his hands, and said resp. Ectfully reporting to the Taoist master, this letter came from the Azure Pond sect. Li Ziming nodded and accepted it. Li Jiangqian had reported to him on every return from an excursion and had grown more adept with each visit. He proceeded to respectfully relay all the household matters one by one. Li Jiangqian's approach to managing family affairs clearly differed from Li Xiaowei's. The latter organized household matters with meticulous precision but rarely disturbed him, while this young man came up the mountain more often, delivering concise and swift summaries of events in progress. By listening casually, Li Ziming could grasp a clear picture of the family's overall situation, and many matters were even brought to him for direct input. After all, Li Xiaowei, the white Qilin of the Li family, was already one of the few who could freely discuss major affairs with Li Ziming. There was no need to elaborate on that. As for Li Jiangqian, being of the younger generation, he clearly wished to gain familiarity and favor in the Taoist master's eyes to strengthen his own influence. Li Ziming understood this perfectly and allowed him up the mountain each time without objection. Chapter 1134, Across the Mortal World I. Upon receiving the letter, he recognized the handwriting as that of his elder brother. As always, Li Zijai's tone was courteous and measured. When he had first ascended to the position of Jiushan Pavilion Master, his letters to the family had been written in the same polite manner. Back then, it reflected humility. Now that Li Ziming himself had become a Taoist master, his brother's unchanged tone no longer seemed driven by pride or interest. After finishing the letter, Li Ziming thought to himself, "See Zunhui, empty response dispersion." Empty response dispersion was one of the 3 Tao lineages of Mount Zhaoxi. The Si family's direct descendant had chosen to cultivate in that lineage and had even made a point to inform him of their intent to enter his mountain gate. The gesture spoke volumes. Yuanziu's lifespan is nearing its end. If the Mount Zhaoxi lineage is now nurturing its own bloodline disciples, it might be a chance for them to inherit something significant. It seems Yuanziu intends to intervene. This move allows the Si family to enter Mount Zhaoxi through us, while extending goodwill toward my family. Having their disciples study under my brother serves to secure an ally for their future. Si Boxiu's gesture of goodwill was not a bad thing for Li Ziming. Azure Pond lay directly behind their main territory, so the more stable it remained, the better. He calculated silently. Si Zunhui has only just reached the Qi cultivation realm, while Wang Quan is already approaching the Foundation establishment realm. The two are unlikely to cross paths. Still, the whereabouts of Mount Zhaoxi's remaining 2 Tao lineages are uncertain. There may yet be opportunity. He took out a paper and brush, wrote a reply, and handed it to Li Jiangqian to deliver. Then he asked, "You look rather pleased. Is there good news?" Li Jiangqian smiled in reply. "Taoist Master, your insight is as sharp as ever. The viewing pavilion has been completed and stands tall beside Chengqing Gate. The Jade Court has also been built, stretching beneath Mount Yuding with rows of connected halls. All the court guards have relocated there. There is 1 Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator, 19 Qi Cultivation Realm cultivators, 89 who have achieved Embryonic Breathing Realm, and more than 20,000 mortal soldiers. In total, over 96,000 people now live at the foot of the mountain. It's well beyond the threshold required for gathering spiritual energy. Just a few days ago, Dharma Protector Li Wen entered to draw in the spiritual energy, and there were indeed signs of dust of the court manifesting. At last, our family's aged courtly path scripture can be cultivated in earnest. Excellent. The viewing pavilion was an essential site for refining spirit embryos, and something Li Ziming had long paid attention to. He had refrained from urging progress earlier only because a suitable Dharma artifact had yet to be obtained. He had not expected the construction to be completed so swiftly. As for the dust of the court, the family had gained a new purple mansion realm Dao lineage, and Li Ziming was naturally overjoyed. Moreover, the aged courtly path scripture was an ancient cultivation technique once practiced exclusively by the Jiang family, the descendants of the immortal mansion. Now, with the flourishing abundance of jade in the present age, this art might not be inferior to any other. Li Jiangqian smiled, bowed respectfully, and replied, "I have come to seek your decree, Taoist master. How should this technique be arranged?" Li Ziming tapped lightly on the jade table and said, "The household court guards cultivate the quicker method, known as the guardian of the courtly path. Though not remarkable in quality, it allows extremely rapid progress from embryonic breathing realm to qi cultivation realm. It is usually assigned to cultivators of humble birth with poor aptitude. However, when these guards encounter cultivators of the aged courtly path scripture, their Dao lineage is suppressed and cannot compete. Therefore, the cultivation of the aged courtly path scripture must be held firmly within our own family." The Li family's choice of the guardian of the courtly path was not simply for its speed. More importantly, its energy-gathering requirement was minimal. It drew qi in using jade well-cold armor and needed only a single well to collect spiritual energy. The cost was astonishingly low, requiring no spirit stones at all. He then asked the Jiang family was destroyed, and this cultivation art spread among their descendants. Their remnants should still have records of it. Fortunately, most were exterminated long ago, leaving only the branch. I recall my father had already severed that lineage's inheritance of the technique. Has this matter been verified? Li Jiangqian bowed and replied respectfully, reporting to the Taoist master, "I have already looked into it. A few households in Nanjing were branch lines of the Yu family, but they failed to breach the family treasury during the rebellion and thus never obtained the aged courtly path scripture. However, while studying the Yu family's genealogical records, I discovered a small family surnamed Pu north of the eastern shore who were descendants of the Jiang family. I sent Uncle Cheng Huai to investigate, and he found that they had secretly kept a portion of the aged courtly path scripture." Li Ziming gestured for him to continue, and Li Jiangqian said, "I invited the direct descendants of the Pu family and had both father and son swear a spiritual oath to sever the transmission of the technique. As compensation, I granted them a hereditary post in the Jade Court that would protect their descendants. From now on, this branch will reside and cultivate in the Jade Court, leaving a newborn descendant to return and inherit the Pu family name each generation. After 2 generations, the lineage of this technique will be considered completely severed. Good, even though the qi is under our control and others cannot cultivate it effectively, taking precautions ensures no one glimpses the secrets of our Dao lineage." Li Ziming sipped his tea and voiced his approval, though his mind turned to other matters. He had long known that Li Xiaowei's children were not close to one another. Over 100 years had passed since their family's founding, and though the 3 main bloodlines remained somewhat connected, their numbers had dwindled. Now most of the cultivators within the province came from the main lineage's many offshoot branches. Through sheer numbers, some had produced talents and returned to the main family after years abroad, but such returnees were rarely close to the core bloodline. As a result, under Li Jiangqian's administration, the mid to high ranks of the province were increasingly filled with outsiders and returning branch descendants. The virtue of a noble house fades after 5 generations. The youngest branch, with brothers' support, had at least managed to bring forth Cheng Huai and Zhuluo, but the first lineage, burdened by its vast mortal population, sinks into the lake island. It has many cultivators, yet not a single true prodigy. Li Jiangqian had handled the matter neatly, and Li Ziming nodded in acknowledgement without further comment. Yet he understood perfectly well that their family held significant influence within the Jade Court. Li Wen was a solitary loyalist, and the Pu family branch there now undoubtedly stood as Li Jiangqian's supporters. One could not view any cultivator in the family purely as an individual. Li Jiangqian was not merely himself, he was also a member of the second lineage, his maternal clan being then family. Whether it was Li Jianglong or Li Jiangxia, their thirst for power was innate, yet the influence they held was never theirs alone, it belonged to the factions behind them. Behind Li Jiangqian stood an entire faction, their family, the second lineage, and numerous cultivators who supported the primogeniture family system. From another perspective, this maneuver was also then family's way of preserving its influence, a self-rescue effort after losing in Siwei and watching its hold on power begin to waver. There was nothing wrong with that, and Li Ziming did not press further. He only said, "This technique is not weak. Someone from the main bloodline should cultivate it. If I recall, Jiangliang is still at the embryonic breathing realm. The qi will have ripened by the time he advances. Let him be the one to cultivate it." "As you command, Taoist master," Li Jianqian replied. However, Jiangliang was once engaged to someone from the prof. Owned Peak Gates. They would not dare to bring it up anymore. Li Ziming answered casually but hesitated for a moment. If the profound Peak Gate managed a Purple Mansion realm breakthrough within a few years, the matter might yet resurface. Thus, he said, "Then let Jiangyan cultivate it, and Jiangliang, leave his matter to your father's arrangement." Li Jianqian acknowledged and withdrew. After waiting a moment, Li Ziming departed, vanishing into the great void. Chapter 1135, Across the Mortal World, II. Eastern Sea. Jagged black reefs jutted skyward as waves crashed and surged without white foam, but inky darkness. The sea's surface reflected no light. Here, at the far eastern edge of the Eastern Sea, the spiritual energy had grown thin, and even the great void had grown calm. The seawater beneath the surface was pitch black. A few spirit fish swam past now and then, but nothing else could be seen. In the depths of that vast, shadowy world, a young man in azure robes and a golden tassel at his waist sat cross-legged with eyes tightly shut. Before him stretched an enormous formation, its surface woven with emerald green patterns. It resembled a vast agate dome pressing down upon the ocean floor. Coral and reef had accumulated over tens of thousands of years beneath it, though it was so hard that even a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator could scarcely move them. It had been cleanly sliced through like tofu and was now strewn unevenly across the seabed. After some time, the young man slowly opened his eyes. His pupils were a pale cyan, and currents of pristine water coiled around him, their purity wholly at odds with the murky sea. They gathered into a faintly glowing turquoise halo. "Fellow Taoist, how is my formation?" His cheerful voice rippled completely unhindered through the dark waters, carrying straight into the sealed formation. In the next instant, the surrounding seawater began to boil violently, and a thunderous roar echoed back. "Kai Buzi, have you lost your mind? When have I ever wronged you?" Kai Buzi rose from the reef and stepped leisurely through the water, smiling as he spoke. "It is precisely because you never wronged me that I could trap you here, isn't it? It has only been 2 years of refining, and I have yet to even make a move. Why are you so impatient, my friend? Besides, this place is Shiki, the domain of the true monarch of transcendent creation. I revere that venerable senior deeply, so rest assured, I would never take your life here." At those words, the creature trapped within the formation was so furious that it fell silent for 3 full breaths. Kai Buzi knew full well how stifled the creature must be. He had laid his trap step by step, wielding 4 divine abilities of a late Purple Mansion realm cultivator to deceive a weaker foe. He had scattered traces of a lost relic, feigned seclusion nearby, and simply waited for the creature to take the bait. After all, it was a Purple Mansion realm cultivator's seclusion ground. Even when the demonic creature had glimpsed the formation from within the great void, it thought little of it. But the moment it drew near, it was deceived by Kai Buzi's Chaogui hidden form and failed to realize that the actual formation was far larger than what its spiritual sense had perceived. Even so, that demonic creature had questioned him from afar across the waters, remaining well beyond the reach of his formation. Kai Buzi had endured 2 patient years of feigned exchanges before she finally wandered close enough to the formation to fall victim to his divine abilities. Once the creature entered the formation, Kai Buzi suppressed her with a spirit artifact and strengthened the formation each day with his divine abilities. He waited in silence for 2 full years, so still and unyielding that the creature had nearly begun to suspect the formation itself was faulty. She nearly thought that even Kai Buzi might have been deceived. Now that the truth was revealed, she was so enraged she nearly spat blood. Her voice was unexpectedly clear and feminine as it rang out furiously. "Kai Buzi, even beasts like me know our parents, yet you rootless and clanless watched the Azure Pond sect fall into others' hands and did nothing. You faithless scoundrel, not a word from your mouth can be trusted. I only regret believing you, not knowing you were a madman without cause or kin." Kai Buzi only laughed. "Beasts like you do not understand. Sects rely on secret teachings and use inner and outer doctrines to bind and deceive. Families depend on blood ties and wield names as tools of tyranny. One is tainted by the other, leaving both corrupt. How could I, who walk with divine abilities, stoop to the filth of the mortal dust? And yet you, a beast, cling to your so-called parents. What a laughable thing to boast of." Though she too was a Purple Mansion realm being, how could she match wits with Kai Busey, who had studied the classics since youth? His words struck her speechless, and she could only retort, "I may be a beast, but you are a demon. Why should I not say it?" Kai Busey ignored her and began walking into the formation, each footfall stirring the sea. The black water gradually turned azure, separating into murky and clear layers that rose upward until the transformation reached the surface. Rain began to fall in a torrential sheet. The Purple Mansion realm demonic creature panicked as Kai Busey, walking on pristine water, entered the formation. Having only recently broken through to that realm, she knew that once the great void was sealed, she stood no chance against him. She cried out, "Kai Busey, I was at least initiated beneath the Tongson tree. Even the Lewin birds know my name. Think carefully before you act." Kai Busey responded with an easy smile. "You're precisely the one I chose, and what if they know your name? You only performed a single bow beneath that tree. Who would care about that now?" In that instant, the great formation erupted with roaring power. Waves of pristine water, divine abilities surged as intense lesser yin radiance swept through the formation, transforming into countless white, floating shards of ice. Cold, oppressive currents tried to rise, but were relentlessly crushed beneath the weight of the pristine water. The creature took the form of a stunningly beautiful young maiden, clad only in a translucent veil of azure silk. Yet when the pristine water crashed down upon her, she could no longer maintain her disguise. Her true body emerged, that of a spirit sparrow with blue and white feathers shimmering faintly in the dim light. Kai Busey had not spared her human guise so much as a glance, as if it might sully his eyes, but now, seeing her true form, his gaze lit up with interest. He could not help but look her over and exclaim with a sigh, "Excellent, another winged beast indeed. The old texts say, lesser yin gives rise to feathers, bright yang gives rise to shells. Most think the latter false, but the former, that I see now, is nearly the truth." The spirit sparrow could not understand why this man would harm her for no reason. When he started rambling about ancient texts, she gnashed her teeth in fury and cursed, "Foolish being." The two clashed within the formation, their battle churning the surrounding waters. The sea above flickered between light and shadow, while rain poured endlessly for half a month. A few passing cultivators even paused upon the surface, gazing down in wonder. The pristine water still flows without end. Could there be a treasure hidden below? The strength of those cultivators was far too meager to reach the depths, so they found nothing. Meanwhile, deep below, the Purple Mansion realm demonic creature had fought to her limit, and her feathers were nearly all shorn away. She forced herself against the crushing pressure of pristine water, struggling toward the edge of the formation. Without hesitation, the creature lowered her head and hurled herself at the formation with all her remaining strength. A deafening boom followed, and her head exploded into a mist of pale white essence as dense as blood, splattering across the formation. The unleashed energy shook the formation, but after withstanding half a month of assaults, that final desperate impact caused it to waver at last. For a fleeting instant, a crack in the great void appeared, and in that moment the creature vanished into thin air. Kai Busey, however, remained calm. With a flick of his hand, the formation shrank rapidly and flew into his sleeve. Blessed with a body divine ability and empowered by his spirit artifact, he was certain the creature could not escape him. Even at her peak, she would not have been his match, much less now when she was gravely wounded. He murmured softly to himself, "A talkative little creature. She said she couldn't die within Shiki, and she truly fled elsewhere." Kai Busey tore through the great void and sped after her, yet the vast emptiness showed no trace of her passage. He did not bother glancing around as he extended his hand. He hooked his little finger, touching thumb to forefinger, and began to recite, "Whence come purity and murkiness. When frost, heat, and chill appear within the radiant pond, the mark of lesser yin is revealed." His eyes lit up. He stepped through the great void once more and caught sight of the fleeing spirit sparrow. She darted swiftly through the void, faster than most could hope to follow, yet still slower than him. Halfway through her escape, she was forced to break out of the void and return to the mortal realm. The moment the sparrow burst from the void, she emerged above the sea, appearing right before the group of cultivators still gathered there. A dozen of them stood watch, believing some treasure was about to surface. Wounded and furious, the Purple Mansion realm creature dove at them in a frenzy, devouring several ancestors and temple masters in a single breath before flying off without so much as a glance back. Chapter 1136, Duties I. Kai Busey burst out from the void, tearing through the air in fluttering azure robes. One glance was enough to enrage him, and his voice thundered like rolling clouds, "You vile creature, I used my divine abilities to capture you, yet you still dare to eat humans. Seeking death are you. If I don't capture you today, all my cultivation and divine abilities will have been in vain." The spirit sparrow sped through the air. Her feathers bristled in fury, and she ground her teeth as anger filled her chest. You lackey of pristine water, you utterly shameless zealot. Azure Pond sect kills more people every year than I have feathers on my body, yet you dare speak righteously about eating humans." She had cultivated in the outer sea for many years, and was long accustomed to a graceful immortal's bearing. She rarely revealed her true form, and she was treated as a Purple Mansion realm immortal cultivator wherever she went. Ever since attaining enlightenment, she had rarely partaken of blood food, but now that she had been driven into a corner, she had been forced to act out of desperation. Kai Busey's insults cut deep, yet she had no chance to explain. She didn't turn back as she sped forward. Kai Busey continued to curse as he flew after her. Man and beast darted through the great void, vanishing and reappearing as they went. The chase carried them all the way to the far eastern reaches of the eastern sea. When the spirit sparrow saw the edge of the sea ahead, she turned sharply and slipped through the void, heading back the way she came. Kai Busey pursued at a steady pace, deliberately herding her eastward and never allowing her to turn back. Shaking his head, he said, "Fellow Taoist, that won't do." He immediately drew a cauldron from his sleeve and tossed it into the air. It expanded into a massive green cauldron the size of a small house. Chanting an incantation, Kai Busey flicked his sleeve toward it, and a clear ringing sound echoed as he intoned, "Shift the palace of celestial signs, let there be rain." The spirit artifact was itself an extension of pristine water. As Kai Busey activated his divine ability, the technique Heavy Murk transformed into rolling gray mists that swept across the sky and sea, shrouding everything in gloom. The Purple Mansion realm spirit sparrow suddenly saw the world around her shift. Rain poured down in sheets, turning the sea and sky into a gray, seamless expanse. Fear gripped her heart, and she immediately fled into the great void. But Kai Busey followed close behind. After flying for some distance, the sparrow found him on her tail once more, forcing her to return to the mortal realm. Blinking rapidly, she realized that the void around her was unnaturally uniform. She could no longer tell where she was. What kind of spirit artifact is this? She landed at random and re-entered the mortal realm, only to find the same endless gray rain stretching in all directions. Mist swirled beneath her feet. She had no idea where she was or which way she had flown. Gritting her teeth, she dove into the fog below. An instant later, she burst out of the clouds above, straight into Kai Busey, who stood with his hands behind his back, watching her coldly. This spirit artifact is no ordinary tool. It's an ancient spirit treasure. Kai Busey didn't give her a chance to react. The pristine water he had been gathering in his hands cascaded down in a torrent. Without a body divine ability to shield herself and already wounded, she was struck head-on. Feathers and bones alike seemed to melt under the force as a shrill cry was torn from her throat. That divine ability truly shook her very life force. Manifesting her body again elsewhere, the spirit sparrow flew blindly on, despair in her heart as she cried within, 80 or 90% of Azure Pond Sect's spirit artifacts must have fallen into this bastard's hands. A late-stage Purple Mansion realm cultivator, carrying 3 spirit artifacts and a formation besides, still stoops to ambush and deceive a junior like me. She flew for what felt like an eternity, only to be caught again. The divine ability struck her again, dulling her speed even further. The formation Kai Busey had unleashed was incredibly powerful, and the already wounded spirit sparrow now faced a spirit artifact that seemed to belong to an ancient age. Despair clutched at her heart. As she flew, she kept a close eye on her surroundings. Occasionally, she glimpsed small islands through the mist, which at least meant the spell did not trap her in a loop. It was not as overbearing as Ning Tiaxiao's spirit artifact from years ago. But the Eastern Sea is vast and boundless. With such a mystical formation, combined with Kai Busey's deliberate encirclement, escape has become near impossible. How can I survive trap? Ped beneath this spirit artifact's rain curtain, letting the pristine water divine ability slice me apart bit by bit. She grew increasingly distressed, while Kai Busey kept his attention on her. This spirit sparrow was, after all, a rogue cultivator who had attained the Tao through the Lesser Yin lineage. Though there were no tales of her great fortunes, one could never afford to underestimate a Purple Mansion realm being. He slowed slightly, and the spirit sparrow suddenly turned around. Her Lesser Yin divine ability surged at full force, white threads of light forming before her. Kai Busey did not recognize the exact spell, but he had long since learned her background and could make a fair guess. The Lesser Yin divine ability sunk in fragrance, an ability born from the mingling of nascent splendor and growing chill. It governs cold yet carries fire, rules over yin yet holds dryness. Since sunken fragrance is a spell divine ability, it must combine cold and arid natures, manifesting as flame. So he moved calmly, fingers forming a tight seal. Sure enough, the white threads ignited into pale yin flames, scattering the surrounding rain into mist. Even the gray haze beneath them began to fade. Kai Buzi could not allow her to continue and flicked his finger. Clear dusk rain. Torrents of rain poured down, momentarily suppressing the flames. His opponent fought back with all her strength, making the fire surge and shrink erratically within the downpour. Regret stirred in Kai Buzi's heart as he sighed inwardly. The lesser yin monarch fire of cold and dryness should be suppressed by the pristine water's purifying dew. It's a perfect counter. If only I possessed that divine ability, capturing this creature would be effortless. Unfortunately, I have yet to obtain the purifying dew. The Azure Ponsec's inheritance was incomplete. The purifying dew technique, rooted in the dew tribulation falling petal art, had lost its vital method of gathering qi. The Kai family had collected various versions of the art for many years, yet all of them contained fundamental flaws in qi gathering. Thus, even as a direct descendant of the Kai family, Kai Buzi could not successfully cultivate it. Though pristine water still reigned supreme, the qi gathering for purifying dew had always failed. Kai Buzi had not dared to question it within the Azure Pond sect, but now, out in the Eastern Sea, he understood clearly. Who else but the pristine water origin talisman true monarch himself could have willed it so? As long as the true monarch's will was behind it, every qi gathering method would inevitably fail. The specific spiritual energy required for the Kai family's technique had never been found in any ruin. Kai Rui had tried to harmonize it with the converging water method but failed repeatedly, while Kai Wei had attempted substitution using horn wood to complement spiritual sustenance, but it was to no avail. While he contemplated, the spirit sparrow suddenly darted forward, turning defense into offense. Her pale yellow beak snapped open, revealing rows of fine, razor-sharp teeth, and a surge of deep white light burst forth. Kai Buzi finally grew solemn. The spell in his hands shifted form, and the massive cauldron emerged from the great void to stand before him. His pupils deepened from pale azure to dark blue. Spring's Echo. It was a powerful divine ability that served as both a life and body divine ability. His body instantly transformed into flowing spring water that merged with the great cauldron. Soft sounds of bubbling springs began to rise from the cauldron. After 15 minutes, the spirit sparrow's desperate deep white light finally overturned the cauldron with a thunderous clang. The spring water burst forth from the vessel, and a voice echoed faintly from within the bluish-gray liquid. The spring flows endlessly. The murkiness lies within the water, neither condensing nor ceasing, neither parching nor ending. Though the monarch flame may rage, how can it harm me? Thus the spring water pressed down on the deep white light, while the cauldron descended once more to suppress it. The light gradually dimmed, and the surrounding gray murk thickened again, sealing everything within. That single divine ability alone revealed a depth of cultivation far beyond what this demonic creature could ever reach. Despair surged within her chest. She had only just broken through, and no matter how she struggled before Kai Buzi, whose cultivation, divine abilities, formations, and mastery of spell arts far surpassed her own, she was utterly powerless. Chapter 1137, Duties II. It's the Spring's Echo. The spirit sparrow froze for an instant, realizing that her opponent had unleashed his life divine ability in full, striking her while she was vulnerable. It was already too late. The bluish-gray pristine water cascaded down upon her. Kai Buzi remained cautious, though the spirit sparrow was trapped and unable. Likely to escape, she could still fight to the death. If she died now, all the years of his preparation would be wasted. So while maintaining his suppression with the pristine water, he revealed himself, a confident smile spreading across his face as he said, "Fellow Taoist, there's no need to panic. I did not go to all this trouble just to take your life." The demonic creature did not believe him and only replied coldly, "Enough talk. My divine ability may be weak, but if I fight with my life on the line, wounding you will not be difficult." Kai Buzi blinked and steadied his gaze. His features were handsome, and his azure robes lent him a refined air. With a solemn expression on his face, he spoke with apparent sincerity. "I truly have no intention of harming you. You and I belong to different Dao lineages and share no enmity. You possess neither spirit artifact nor treasure. Why would I wish you harm? My goal was merely to open a lesser Yin Dao lineage of my own, and I feared you might compete for it, hence this display." The demonic creature still did not believe him. The pristine water divine ability in Kai Buzi's hands never ceased as he continued speaking. At worst, it becomes a fight to the death. You may try if you wish." As he spoke, a silver-white cord within his sleeve began to glow faintly. His expression did not change. He watched her earnestly, while silently increasing the pressure of the pristine water, growing heavier with every breath. Within the mirror's world, mist coiled through the air, drifting over gleaming white tiles. Several stone lanterns stood in the courtyard, their pale yellow glow spilling softly onto the ground. Complex runes were etched across their surfaces. A youth with light jade-colored eyes lay sprawled over a stone table, looking listless and bored. Refined fire of the profound drum, a true fire control art. It follows the 12 Changlu pathway for ignition. What an ancient technique this is, needs revision. Dangjiang lay there for a while before lazily picking up his brush to make corrections. The pavilion was quiet and empty, save for two dull-eyed yellow-armored warriors hauling jade slips up the stairs. Even after being officially stationed in the heavens, Dangjiang's workload hadn't lessened in the slightest, though the number of people he met had. Before, when he had been serving in the Lord's manor beneath the sun of heaven, there had been at least a few to talk to. Now, confined to this tower and forbidden to move about freely, his days were all the more miserable. After receiving a commendation a year ago, Dangjiang had begged endlessly not to be transferred back to the manor, but simply to be assigned a colleague. At last, the immortal official Liu had granted him 2 subordinates. Overjoyed, he returned to the tower only to discover that his assistants were 2 brainless puppets, utterly devoid of thought. Dangjiang was disappointed, but even dull company was better than none. At least he had someone to talk to, easing his boredom a little. Truthfully, there was little actual work here, no tasks that required heavy lifting or carrying, and he sometimes felt guilty about saying anything at all. Yet every time he lifted his head, he was met with a pair of thick eyebrows and a blank face, which spoiled the mood entirely. The youth paused, sighing inwardly. "The next time I get a chance, I'm changing their dharma bodies. I'll turn them both into graceful and beautiful maids. One shall hold a pale blue pipa in flowing white robes, and the other a jade pot in pink silk with warm milk simmering inside. Now that would be true beauty." He paused for a few breaths when suddenly he heard knocking from the door. Overjoyed, Dangjiang jumped to his feet and called out loudly, "My lord, please come in." Sure enough, a white-robed immortal official stepped into the courtyard. His appearance was plain, but the moment Dangjiang saw him, his face lit up with joy, tears welling up in his eyes as he cried, "Lord Liu, it has been far too long." The immortal official Liu gave a small nod and replied calmly, "Greetings, fellow Taoist. It has been some time. How goes your progress?" Dangjiang was long accustomed to his indifferent tone and paid it no mind. Maintaining his enthusiastic smile, he immediately began talking about the technique spread across the table. "I'm currently working on the refined fire of the profound drum." The profound in its name refers to the spreading of profound grace across the vast wilderness, signifying a reach that extends everywhere. This fire-refining method draws from ancient precedents, beginning with the 12 Changlu ignition pathway. Once he started, he could not stop. His words jumped from east to west, from one topic to another, flowing endlessly. Lu Jiangxian, disguised as Liu, clenched and unclenched his fists again and again as he listened. "I truly brought this upon myself. Why did I have to ask?" Lu Jiangxian had come in disguise to handle the matter concerning Kai Buzi. The latter was about to capture and offer up a purple mansion realm demonic creature, yet Lu Jiangxian had little of value to reward him with. He was unwilling to part with a green talisman, so he would likely have to make do with offering a talisman pill and a white talisman instead. But such a reward was hardly impressive, and Kai Buzi was not one to act without gain in sight. He would be difficult to appease. On one hand, Lu Jiangxian needed to coax him into continuing his service faithfully. On the other, this would serve as a rehearsal for approaching the Li family later. Not wanting to handle the matter personally, lest he be forced to keep up appearances in the future, Lu Jiangxian decided to use the simple-minded Dangjiang instead. After all, Kai Buzi was formidable, and no amount of acting could match the genuine conviction of this honest fool. Yet Dangjiang kept rambling on and on. By the time Kai Buzi, in the world below, had already beaten the demonic creature to her last breath and was about to capture her with a spirit artifact, the chatter still hadn't stopped. Realizing the timing no longer matched, Lu Jiangxian could no longer hold his composure and said softly, "Your insights are truly profound. So many fascinating speculations, truly captivating. But today, I have come to bid farewell." Dangjiang had been speaking with great enthusiasm. Upon hearing that thunderous declaration, he froze, stunned for a moment before blurting out, "This can't be. Is this by the order of Lord Zhenggao?" Immortal official Liu nodded gravely. Dangjang felt a wave of despair, nearly bursting into tears as he said, "You're the only confidant I have in all the heavens. No one else even bothers to speak to me. You're the only one I can deal with in anything. Now that you're leaving, what am I supposed to do?" Liu replied evenly, "I'm not being sent to reincarnate in the mortal world, merely reassigned. I won't be able to meet you as often, but someone else will come to take over my duties. Do not worry, I'll come visit you again when I have the time." Dangjang let out a long breath of relief. At least Liu wasn't like that immortal official Li who disappeared forever after leaving. There was still hope of seeing him again someday. Yet Liu sighed and added, "However, there's something that's been weighing on my mind. There's one matter in which I must trouble you. After much thought, I've decided I should speak of it." "My lord, please speak. I will certainly do my utmost." Eager to curry favor, Dangjang thumped his chest in earnest promise. Liu hesitated briefly before replying, "With my transfer, the post I held in the manor will now be left vacant. Manpower in the heavens is already scarce as several of our colleagues have descended to the mortal realm. Since I'll be serving in another celestial region, it will be difficult for me to travel back and forth, so I sought the Lord's permission to have you fill in for me for a time." Dangjang's smile froze in place. His expression turned from disbelief to quiet misery. Trembling, he pointed a finger at himself and muttered, "My lord, you mean, your work, your duties, you want me to do them too." Chapter 1138, Suspicion I. "That's not the right way to say it. Don't look down on doing proper work." Immortal official Liu simply smiled and said, "Weren't you always complaining that your current work was dull and exhausting? The position I held before was an easy and rewarding one. I specially saved this post for you. The tasks are novel, the people flatter you, and you even get to observe the lower realm. Isn't that wonderful?" He tucked in his sleeves and pretended to say casually, "Since you're unwilling, then forget it." "My lord, please wait." Dangjang suddenly came to his senses. His drowsiness vanished at once. He hurriedly stood from the table and forced a smile. "I was merely confirming the details, my lord. Whether the task is pleasant or harsh, I accept it gladly. Even the hardest duty is sweet as honey to me. How could I ever disdain your orders? Only now do I realize your kind intentions. I'm deeply moved." Lu Zhongxian, knowing how skilled he was at flattery, simply said, "I'm pressed for time and can't stay to chat. Take my command token. Once you leave your hidden pavilion of profound 7 within the sacred Purity Palace, follow the celestial path onward, and you'll see a treasure hall. In recent years, contact with the lower realm has been severed, and few remain in the pavilion. Use the command token for verification and ascend the steps. Someone will meet you." Dangjang was about to ask more, but Lu Zhongxian dared not let him speak further. Pulling away immortal official Liu, he continued, "I must set out immediately. There should be a ritual to the lower realm awaiting you. If you have the time, go at once to carry it out." With that said, he took his leave. Dangjang reluctantly followed him to the courtyard and hesitated before saying, "My lord once said there must always be someone stationed to guard the pavilion, and I've stayed here all this time for that reason. If I leave now, the place will be empty. Wouldn't that be considered dereliction of duty?" "Rest easy." Lu Zhongxian had previously ordered him to stay put only to keep him from wandering, since he always needed someone to deal with him. So he replied, "As long as you carry my command token and are performing official duties rather than idling about, it won't count as neglecting your post. You may stay at either place with peace of mind, but make sure to hurry on the road and avoid lingering." He strode away quickly. Dangjang, unable to leave the courtyard, could only watch him disappear into the horizon. Then he looked down at the command token left on the table. It was about the length of a forearm, pure white in color, and was adorned with silver lunar patterns. It was so ornate that it was clearly no ordinary item. After admiring it for a while, he glanced at the half-edited cultivation manual on the table and thought to himself, "I'll finish writing the rest later, then go have a look." He bent over to study the text, but after only 2 lines, his patience ran out. He thought, "I'll take a look first. After seeing it for a bit, I'll come back and continue. That should help me clear my mind." He immediately rose, left the small courtyard below the attic, and stepped onto the clouds. He took out the command token. A silver star rose from it and streaked through the drifting clouds. Dangjang followed closely behind. Before long, the clouds dispersed, revealing an immense and majestic great hall. Dragons and phoenixes adorned its eaves, giving it a boundless splendor. Beneath his feet stretched a golden lake that shimmered with rippling waters. 12 jade bridges spanned across it, leading toward the central hall. Dangjang took one glance and felt his eyes sting. Quickly lowering his gaze, he noticed rows of immortal soldiers in golden armor standing by the bridges, their armor gleaming and their gazes straight ahead. Naturally, he dared not speak to them. Judging that he lacked the qualification to step onto those bridges, he looked down at the command token and saw that it directed him to go around the lake. Bowing his head, he moved forward quickly and respectfully. The palace complex was vast beyond belief. Even the lakeside had guards stationed around it. Dangjung did not dare lift his eyes as he wound through the corridors, deeper and deeper, until he arrived at a palace gate by the water. Two even more imposing immortal soldiers stood before the gate. At last, someone lifted his brow to look at him. Dangjung raised the command token, and one of them said, "So it's an envoy from the Supreme Yin Court. Please go inside." Dangjung hurried inside. Beyond the gate, the decor gradually returned to the style of the Supreme Yin Court. Faint traces of snow lingered on the floor. The place was spacious and richly adorned. He turned through corridor after corridor, never missing a chance to observe. There were many people within the palace, each more dignified than the last. Most of the immortal generals wore armor only slightly inferior to that of Zheng Gao, some even dressed in similar robes to his, with fairy maidens drifting by in silken tassels. When he finally glimpsed a few immortal officials, they looked anxious and silent, not daring to speak. Being naturally observant, Dangjung had already gauged his own position from what he saw. Keeping his head down, he proceeded until he entered a small courtyard. He only breathed out in relief once the two maids outside closed the gate behind him. The courtyard was perfectly arranged. Spotless white jade tiles paved the ground. 4 pale lamps stood in each corner, and at the center lay a circular pool of unfathomable depth. Aside from that, nothing else was present. At a glance, it was clear this was not a residence. He circled the pool in confusion, unsure what to do. Then the command token in his hand suddenly glowed, and the water in the pool turned a luminous white. Knowing work was about to begin, he hurried forward and peered into its depths. The whiteness in the pool faded away to reveal a mirror-like reflection. At first, it was pitch black, but soon a faint glimmer appeared. From some hidden place came the low hum of reverent prayers, growing clearer and clearer. "Your humble servant, Kai Buzi, sincerely offers this sacrificial feast, respectfully inviting the Supreme Yin Court and praying to the heavenly officials to ward off calamity and purge evil, that immortal fortune may ever flow." Dangjung froze for a moment. His earlier tension and unease vanished at once. A surge of delight rose within him, bringing a grin to his face. As he exclaimed, "So it's you, Taoist Master Kai. I was wondering which exalted lord it would be." He infused his spiritual sense into the command token, activating the Dharma artifact within it to receive the signal. The light and shadow within the pool grew increasingly vivid, and after 15 minutes, the radiance poured outward, gathering in the courtyard and taking the form of a man in azure robes. The man had barely steadied his form when he realized his surroundings had changed completely. He was now standing in a courtyard. Startled and wary, he lifted his brow to see a young immortal official with light green eyes before him, his robe embroidered with supreme yin patterns. Though the official's rank did not seem high, Kai Buzi reacted swiftly and immediately bowed. "This humble cultivator greets you, my lord." Dangjung's mouth stretched wide, his grin nearly spilling off his face as he said, "Taoist Master Kai, open your eyes and take a good look. Do you recognize me?" Kai Buzi paused, raising his brow to look closer. Though the man appeared young, his demeanor carried an old, familiar air that made him hesitate. Kai Buzi had never in fact seen Dangjung's true body. In their past entanglements, their struggle had always taken place within the same vessel. Even when Dangjung gained the upper hand, it was still Kai Buzi's body, just under a different master. Clever as he was, he thought inwardly, the only one I could possibly know on this side must be that stupid donkey. He doesn't look like one, but his tone is exactly the same. So he tested, saying, "Fellow Taoist Dangjung." He didn't even need Dangjung to reply. One look at that smug, asinine grin told him everything. He raised a brow and said, "Well now, the old fool's got some standing up here, hasn't he?" Though he was technically in a position to bow his head, Kai Buzi showed no fear. He was half smiling and half mocking as he spoke. Sure enough, Dangjung burst out laughing and feigned anger as he replied, "You insolent demon disciple. How dare you show disrespect to a dignified immortal official of the Palace of Radiant Purity Supreme Yin?" Though the other spoke with authority, Kai Buzi showed no fear. He understood human nature well. After years of dealing with Dangjung, he knew him inside out. Being servile would only embolden the man. What worked best was laughter and mockery, without a trace of fear. Besides, after so many years of scheming together in the Eastern Sea, though they called each other enemies, how could Dangjung ever truly perish with the immortal lord watching over them? Whether their bond was enmity or fellowship depended only on Kai Buzi's attitude. Since Kai Buzi had been personally granted divine law by the immortal Lord, how could Danjiang dare harm him? He immediately laughed and said, "Oh, drop the act. Judging by your outfit, you're nothing more than a petty official up here." Chapter 1139, Suspicion II. The words hit home, making Danjiang choke in anger as he snapped. Even a minor heavenly official has more prestige than you, a so-called Taoist master of the lower realm. Kai Buzi immediately understood. So this stupid donkey's life in the heavens isn't going well at all. Kai Buzi naturally assumed the heaven Danjiang spoke of was one of the grotto heavens, such as Anhui heaven or Luyu heaven, the very domains of immortal lords. As for this so-called palace of radiant purity supreme yin, it sounded like a mere sect office. After a few words, he had already discerned Danjiang's situation. Glancing subtly toward the courtyard gate, suspicion stirred in his heart. Why haven't I seen anyone else? This is the immortal lord's grotto heaven, but only Danjiang is here to receive me. He declared loudly, "Enough of your talk. I acted under the immortal lord's command to set the formation and perform the rite. How dare you stop me?" The shout frightened Danjiang out of his wits. He quickly tugged at Kai Buzi's sleeve and whispered, "Quiet down, will you? Just because the Lord granted you a summoning formation, you think you're someone important. There's immortal officials and generals outside. If you cause trouble, I won't be able to save you." Kai Buzi narrowed his eyes slightly, immediately shifting his tone to align with the others, and whispered, "I'm unfamiliar with this grotto heaven. Will you be the one guiding me in from now on? I've gone through great trouble to capture a purple mansion realm demonic creature. That's no small offering even in a grotto heaven. It benefits both of us. You need to protect my credit and make sure it counts toward your merit. If you swallow it or fail to safeguard it, then what's left for us to discuss in the future?" Danjiang knew Kai Buzi was shrewd, but he hadn't expected him to spin so many twists of logic so quickly. Momentarily flustered, he replied, "According to the feedback in this command token, your contribution has been recorded. I'll need to report your merits at the main hall. Do you have any particular reward in mind?" Kai Buzi's eyes lit up at once as he answered, That immortal position inheritance you carried back then, do you still remember it? My Chaogui hidden form was forged using that very thing. I ask only for that, nothing else." Danjiang frowned, uncertain whether such a thing still existed, and said, "That item was bestowed from the heavens and is tied to the Purple Mansion realm itself. I do have some connections up here, including a high-ranking official from one of the upper palaces. I can ask around. But if I recall correctly, you already had the Foundation Establishment Realm technique and spiritual chi for Chaogui hidden form back then, and cultivated an immortal foundation without the Purple Mansion Realm chapter. You never truly achieved a divine ability and relied on that treasure's resonance to break through." Kai Buzi frowned as well, clearly realizing something was amiss. Sure enough, Danjiang continued, "But now you intend to cultivate purifying dew, and you don't even have an immortal foundation. The situation is not the same as before. If that treasure ends up wasted, you'll have no one to blame but yourself." "That's true." Kai Buzi furrowed his brow. When he was granted that divine law, he only knew it might allow him to rekindle his cultivation path. The rest had been unknown. Arriving here was already beyond expectation. How could he have thought so far ahead? Now that he understood the situation, realization struck him at once. Right. The purifying dew method isn't secured yet, and Taking would never want to see me advance. It's fine if I don't complete it, but if I manage to form the fifth divine ability, the purifying dew, before Taking returns and fails to break through, I'll die without leaving even a corpse behind. He fell silent for a while, and Danjiang spoke softly. "Why not ask for something else instead? I'm in charge of techniques here, and heaven certainly has no shortage of spiritual chi. I could request the Purple Mansion Realm technique and spiritual chi for purifying dew, and you can cultivate it yourself." Kai Buzi's mindset had shifted entirely. He shook his head and said, "No, even if you brought it, I wouldn't dare cultivate it. It would do me no good." Although he knew the man before him was prone to boasting, Kai Buzi could only grit his teeth and said, "You said you had connections in heaven, so ask around for me. You know my strength and skill well. If I achieve the Golden Core realm outside the Grotto Heaven, it would only benefit you. Even bringing me into the Grotto Heaven someday would earn you plenty of favor." Danjiang nodded silently. No matter how grand heaven was, a Golden Core realm true monarch still commanded respect. On ordinary days, even immortal generals and minor gods would honor such a guest. The thought tempted him, and he said, "The The person I'd need to ask is quite formidable, but on account of me, he won't refuse. I can inquire for you." Kaibuzi nodded, half convinced, and asked, "But how do I return now? And once I'm back, how will I see you again? I can't be catching a purple mansion realm beast every single time. I'm no Golden Core realm true monarch." Dangjiang shook his head. "Just jump into the pool and you'll return. I've already recorded your merit in the command token. In the future, if you wish to reach this place again, activate the formation through a divine ability and project your spiritual sense. You won't be able to enter in person as you did today. Only your consciousness will be transmitted." "That's fine," Kaibuzi sighed, seemingly ready to depart. He stepped to the pool's edge, placed one hand on the jade-white lamp base and felt its solid texture. When he reached for his storage pouch, he realized he could not open it. His expression softened, and his one slight steps came to a sudden halt. He turned his head and said, "May I at least see the scenery outside?" Dangjiang sensed nothing amiss and replied with a mocking smile, "I'm afraid it might frighten you to death." He led Kaibuzi to the courtyard's gate and gently pushed it open. Streets blanketed in cold snow stretched outward, silver moon lanterns glowing upon every corner, and patterns of golden laurel blossoms glimmered across the walls. In the sky, white-robed cultivators flew past, and farther still loomed faint golden palaces and a massive jade bridge spanning the heavens. Kaibuzi squinted at the view, but in the end, he did not dare to step outside. He turned back into the courtyard. "I can't leave through the gate, and there's nothing in this courtyard I can take with me." The youth's green eyes flickered as he carefully surveyed his surroundings before smiling. "Fellow Taoist Dangjiang, your robe is quite splendid and elegant. Why not gift me one?" Dangjiang looked puzzled. "What nonsense is that? You think something like this is yours to take?" Kaibuzi merely smiled without replying. Taking another step, he glanced at the moon-white lamp base. It was sealed, revealing nothing within. The jade tiles beneath his feet were fitted tightly together, without a trace of dust or debris. He showed an earnest smile and spoke with great sincerity. "Fellow Taoist Dangjiang, I'm but a mortal man unfamiliar with heavenly treasures. Would you allow me to take a small keepsake back with me, something I could look upon from time, to remind myself that I have indeed set foot within a grotto heaven?" Hearing this, Dangjiang felt quite flattered. Laughing heartily, he nodded again and again, saying, "Of course, that's only natural." Chapter 1140, Sheahui I. Dangjiang readily agreed, patting his sleeve only to find it empty. The hollowness of his purse made his heart flutter with unease, yet he refused to show it as he smiled. "The heavens have strict rules. I cannot simply bring things with me when I visit this residence, but since nothing here is ordinary, wait a moment." He strode quickly to the front courtyard and pushed open the door. Two graceful and beautiful maids stood outside, their robes fluttering like clouds, though unadorned by any patterns. One held a jade-green peepa trimmed with white, while the other carried a flower basket piled with jade-like herbs. Dangjiang glanced at them and asked, "What kind of spirit herb is that?" One of the maids replied, "Reporting to my lord, today the dipper points to the virtue of recompense. The yin energy pervades the earth, and the celestial timekeepers convey heaven's mandate. The supreme yang gathers the steed that sweeps the profound blossom, while the supreme yin trims the golden branch of laurel. The cosmic pivots remain constant, and the 12 essences draw directly from the heavens." "The golden branch of laurel," Dangjiang nodded. "May I take a branch?" The maid immediately plucked a branch of white laurel. Tiny white blossoms dotted its surface, and the cut of its stem revealed golden rings swirling in spirals. The branch emanated a faint chill. Dangjiang hadn't been sure she would oblige, but he felt relieved when she complied. When he turned back, he found Kaibuzi murmuring thoughtfully, "The supreme yang gathers the steed that sweeps the profound blossom. The supreme yin trims the golden branch of laurel." Dangjiang lifted his head proudly. "Taoist Master Kai, keep it well. A branch of heavenly laurel descending to the lower realm is no small thing." Kaibuzi sincerely offered his thanks, taking the spiritual item and tucking it into his sleeve. With a slight nod, he replied, "Then I shall take my leave. Each year, I will draw a formation to inquire of you. Send word if you have discerned the path to my golden core." Dangjiang seemed reluctant to part and asked, "How about once every 3 months? That way I can make a few more trips. At least I'll have something to do. You can tell me about the affairs of the lower realm when you return." Kaibuzi was still unaccustomed to the term lower realm, and frowned as he said, "Do your job properly. Don't mess things up, or I'll have nowhere to claim my merit later." Dangjiang could only nod, but suddenly remembered something and said anxiously, "I just recalled something. There's an immortal official in the heavens, surnamed Lei, who has reincarnated to cultivate. If you ever encounter him, and if he still remembers his time in the heavens, please ask him when he plans to return. I can't stand this job another day." Kai Busey frowned and made a note of it, then asked, "What kind of work do you even do?" "Cataloging spell arts and revising the Dao lineages." Dangjang spoke with a mournful expression. Kai Busey's expression turned odd, his jaw tightening as he glared at him in barely contained fury. Kai Busey had once devoted himself tirelessly to the Jiyushin Pavilion, refusing to leave even for rest. Now, that same pavilion served as the immortal Lord's grand archive within the Grotto Heavens. It was a place countless Purple Mansion realm cultivators would break their heads trying to enter. As he took in Dangjang's pitiful expression, he cursed, "Useless fool, blessed and you don't even know it." Kai Busey stepped into the pool with a sharp flick of his sleeve, and his figure dissolved like water. Dangjang miserably pushed open the door, and one of the maids stepped forward to say respectfully, reporting to the immortal official, "That branch of the Golden Laurel has already been registered under your name. If the remaining branches are not needed, the basket will be sent to the authorities for record." "What?" Dangjang froze as though he had been struck by thunder. His heart dropped instantly, and regret flooded him as he thought, "Damn it, this thing isn't free." He had shown off so boldly, but now regret gnawed at his chest. Having only recently attained the rank of immortal official, he had spent all his hard-earned merit to summon a heavenly laborer. He had nothing left in reserve. A chill spread through his heart as he asked, "How is this accounted for? Why was it sent here in the first place?" The maid replied, "The outputs of all domains and prefectures must be submitted to the celestial palaces. This rule was set by immortal official Liu some time ago. They are routinely offered in the courtyard for ready use." "Ah, damn that Kai dog, he's ruined me." Dangjang's face turned pale with pain as he quickly asked, "Can this be charged under Kai Busey's name instead? He's the one who took it. It has nothing to do with me." The maid lowered her gaze and said softly, "It was gifted by you, my lord. Heaven and earth bear witness." The Cape. The depths of the sea were shrouded in darkness, with icy undercurrents winding through the reefs. The spiritual energy here was nearly non-existent. Even Purple Mansion realm cultivators could no longer traverse through the void upon nearing this place and would be forced to return to the manifest world to fly. The terrain rose sharply at the farthest depths of the cape. Seawater cascaded endlessly downward, while the mist drifted upward. It lay close to the outer heavens, yet was cut off from the great void. There was no place in all heaven and earth more hidden than this. Faintly glowing white formation lines shimmered softly within the dim cavern. The light before Kai Busey's eyes gradually faded away. He examined his surroundings and confirmed it was indeed the cave dwelling he had condensed using Heavy Merc's ability to control Earth. He exhaled softly, adjusted his sleeve, and turned his palm over to reveal a snow-white branch of laurel radiating a faint, hazy glow. The cross-section of the branch gleamed with golden veins. It was clearly a treasure of the highest grade. His gaze lingered on the laurel branch for a long while. As the cave filled with the frigid aura of supreme yin, he retrieved a jade box from his storage pouch and placed the branch inside. It truly is a treasure of the supreme yin lineage, so spirit items from that place can indeed be brought out. But why can't I open my storage pouch there? He held the jade box as his eyes dropped and he contemplated in silence. After a moment his thoughts settled. This single spirit item alone rivals any demonic creature of today's age. In that case, the heavenly glyph bright profound sacrificial method truly is a means to communicate with the grotto heavens. But must the offering necessarily be a demonic creature? Kai Busey's eyes gleamed with a peculiar light as understanding dawned upon him. The Purple Mansion realm demonic creatures of the Eastern Sea are almost all tied in some way to the Dragon Clan and are impossible to slay. But spirit beasts too can be considered demonic. Those few Maha in the north delight in keeping such beasts. Not only do many of those beasts become merciful ones, those ancient merciful ones liked fusing with those spirit beasts, forming destinies akin to the Purple Mansion realm. Are they not far more plentiful than true demonic creatures? The more he pondered, the brighter his eyes grew. Excellent. Though the merciful ones are difficult to kill, they are far more numerous and easier to deal with than those of the Purple Mansion realm. They only have a Maha behind them, so perhaps the merit might count as a full share, or even half a share would do. He could think of no better sacrifice than the merciful ones, and realization dawned upon him. It seems that Exalted One despises the Northern Buddhist as well. He hesitated briefly, then sat cross-legged within the cave as he began to examine the golden branch of laurel within the jade box. This spirit item surpassed even the supreme yin moonlight in grade. It was an exceedingly rare treasure. Merely placing it before him was enough to stir waves of supreme yin qi through the chamber. The young man gazed quietly at the cluster of white blossoms, eyes glinting with boundless ambition. Resting his chin upon one hand, he murmured softly, his tone reverent and rhythmic like a chant. All fruition attainment revere the supreme yin. The supreme yang is the first to manifest by day, and all light follows its course. The profound radiance of the supreme yin descends upon the Bingzi water, guiding pristine and uniting the two principles.